11:53, sorry.
We are late, though, sorry.
Please call the roll.
Rahman.
Present.
Long.
Here.
Powell.
Here.
Cavell.
Here.
Smith Charles stepped away. Whitebird.
Here.
Hoffman.
Present.
Woodward.
Here.
Markham.
Here.
You have quorum.
All right. Would everybody please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Next up, we have approval of the previous minutes. I'll take a motion. Moved by Commissioner Rahman, supported by Commissioner Hoffman. Any additions or deletions? All in favor of approving the previous minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You're nobody. Minutes are approved. Next up, we have approval of today's agenda. I'll take a motion. Moved by Commissioner Long, supported by Commissioner Cavell. Do we have any additions, deletions, or changes? Okay. Seeing none, let's prompt the vote on this one.
You have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries. Next, we have our public comment. At this time, we open it up to anybody from the public who wishes to address this committee on items on today's agenda. We'll have a second public comment at the end, which is for comments on any topic. Is there anybody that wishes to address this committee at this time? Please come to the end of the table and state your name and welcome.
Good morning, or afternoon, morning still.
Morning.
I'm Chris Barnett. I am the Orion Township Supervisor, have been in my role for 12 years. I'm here to talk today about the Sheriff's Office contract. And I will just be very candid with you as my colleagues, elected officials. I'm very frustrated, as are some of my colleagues and the others that are not able to be here today. I believe there are 12 of the 62 municipalities that make up the county that contract with the Sheriff's Office for police services. We are one of them, the 4th largest contract. And we are the longest standing contract Orion Township is. And we have a wonderful relationship. Cannot say enough about the amazing work that our Oakland County Sheriff's Office does for not just Orion, but the whole county. Award-winning, great service. And we like to say we provide proactive policing in our community because we are constantly working on giving proper funding and adding deputies so that we can stay in front of things. And we are one of the safest communities in the state of Michigan because of that. But today, you guys are looking at a huge increase. We are a calendar year budget. Our budget for 2025 is already set. And I think the most frustrating part is we have been breadcrumbed, if that, about this giant increase that we are facing. We are a customer. No one has called us. No one has met with us. No one has sought our input. We have just been told we should show up and pay attention to what's going on because a huge increase is coming. We are a captive audience. It's not like we can just go hire Acme Police Company tomorrow if we don't like the rates you're giving us. We're getting this jammed down our throats. And what I've heard, and I don't know, I've heard it's 15%, which is about more than $800,000 next year to my police budget. You're gonna force Pontiac, Rochester Hills, Commerce, those are the 3 large ones. We have planned and budgeted to add a deputy in January and 1 in June. So 1.5 new positions next year, those will be off the table. Can't imagine what's gonna happen in Pontiac. We've been working to try to get in touch with Mayor Greimel. This is really frustrating. It's not the way to do business. To tell us, and when were we gonna find out? We have to pay attention to your agendas. Our budget starts January 1, and I'm gonna find some way to find $800,000 to continue providing the level of police service to my residents. It's impossible. So I'm frustrated. This is not how you build relationships. We are a customer, but we're colleagues, we're friends, we work together, we're all working and pushing in the same direction. I watched briefly the meeting yesterday, and heard that the rates that have been proposed, which again looks like a 15% increase for my police budget, would come with a 6% plus CPI in year 2. Not sure where that number came from or how it makes sense, but a 25% increase in 2 years, it's over $1 million a year. This will effectively be defunding police. I haven't looked at the Pontiac Police budget, but they're the largest client of the sheriff's office. But I'm frustrated, as you can tell. We need better communication. I've been in my role for 12 years. I know most of you at this table. I've been the chair of SEMCOG, the president of the Supervisors Association. I'm at every meeting, and we shouldn't have to find out about these things through rumor and innuendo to try to come fight to continue providing services for our residents. So I'm hopeful, and I'm asking you to not jam this down our throats 35 days from now or whenever the motion gets passed next week. Maybe explain it to us and then give us 2 or 3 years to ease in this 15% increase, do 5% a year or something instead of making us absorb it all in 1 year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barnett. Is there anyone else that wishes to address us in public comment at this time? Please state your name and the community you're with.
Larry Gray, Commerce Township Supervisor, been in office for 4 years. I just want to come and echo Chris's comments in reference to the contract that's coming in. We sat down and we talked about this during the fire dispatch agreement, and we were all in the understanding that from when they were done, after that we would have ample time to look at these rates that were coming in. I believe it was in 4 months that we were told that we would have this. As Chris mentioned, just like the Ascension contract, just like the fire dispatch contract, we got 35 days to make a decision. We're partners here, we're your customer here, and we really feel that you're doing us this favor by cramming this down our throat. I understand everybody needs to pay their fair share. We're willing to do that, but we need to be involved in this. You need to understand how we operate. As Chris mentioned, my budget's are already approved as well for 2025. I'm gonna have to come up and find close to $950,000. Where are we gonna come up with this? We don't have plans to add any new depths this year, but if we don't have the funding, we'll probably have to let 1 or 2 go. So again, all we're asking here is think about what you're doing here. If we could work together on this and maybe roll this out to ease the pain with everybody, all your customers that use the county sheriff, it'd be greatly appreciated. But once again, please think about this. I think we appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Gray.
My name is Charles File. I am the newly elected Independence Township Supervisor. So I'm 4 or 5 days early, I guess, because it's not official yet.
Could you restate your name? I'm sorry.
Charles File.
Charles.
File. Chuck File.
Bob?
Phyle.
Oh.
Yeah, see, actually, I should have led with that. It's a little tricky, it's a little tricky.
And what community are you with?
Independence Township.
Independence, okay,
Oh,
I'm gonna
okay.
start you over there.
Supervisor elect.
Supervisor elect.
Can I start over? Hi, my name's Chuck File, Phyle, Independence Township Supervisor elect. Okay. I've spent the last 35 years in the private industry. I built my own company and everything else. I'm in a really unusual position, right? Because as the incoming new supervisor, budgets have already been kind of defined, and I'm learning the ropes, right? So it's a very difficult time. I can share, just going back from a business perspective, that a rate increase like this, without any forewarning, is incredibly difficult under the best situations. And what I'm seeing in our township, based on the budget, because we just spent the last 2 weeks going through those very laborious meetings, is that we're not going to be able to absorb this. So again, I'm echoing a little bit here for sure. I'm hoping that this is an anomaly that can be explained away, and this is not normal procedure for government. Again, being the first time being in government, I've never ran for office before, so this is my first experience. I would like to think that it's like any other negotiation. Hey, here's what we think we need. You guys have your stuff you have to get done. I understand that completely. At the same token, we have stuff that we need to get done. And to suddenly come back and say that there is no other option seems tyrannical at best. And so, I'm hoping that with this group here, we can start on a good fresh foot and come through and say, okay, here's what we believe the reasons why this and this and this. And yeah, either we can sit there and say yes or no, but you gotta help us out, right? I mean, again, we're the customer. It seems very odd for me to have a vendor sit there and dictate things. And, you know, for me, I would just like you guys to keep that in mind. And by the way, if I say things wrong, use the wrong term and all that, you all have a different vernacular too, so I'm trying to learn those as well. But I thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
It's file.
Welcome.
File.
Thank you. All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to address us in public comment at this time? Seeing no one, I will close the first public comment and we will move into communications. Item 7A is the 2024 fourth quarter master plan executive summary. Moved by-
I'll move A, can I move
You wanna-
A and B?
Yes, you can.
And to receive and file.
And B is the 2024 fourth quarter service agreement report, so. I have a motion from Commissioner Long, supported by Commissioner Smith Charles. Anybody have any comments on this? Okay, let's prompt the vote, please.
You have 9 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries, thank you. We'll move into item number 8, departmental recommendations. 8A is the sponsorship of the annual Holly Dickens Festival. I need a motion.
Mr. Hoffman?
Commissioner Hoffman, supported by Commissioner Smith Charles. Is somebody gonna talk to us
Yes, I
about
will.
this?
And I have with us today George Cullis, he's the supervisor, Holly Township, better known as Scrooge. And if you guys would like to go to the front, Mike and Sarah McKenney and Lady Di, Diana Bibb. And I just wanted to point out, there's a mistake in the original application. The budget now is $80,000, so this would be 25% of the budget. Holly was just named one of the 12 best Hallmark movie type Christmas towns in Michigan. And George can probably give you a little more. You're welcome to have a seat if you'd like, but go ahead, George. Or Scrooge, I mean.
Do you need our names first, or can we just go ahead?
You can just go ahead.
Welcome to Holly's 51st Annual Dickens Festival. It's the oldest, longest-running festival in the country of its kind. Now, why do we call it oldest, longest? It started in 1973, and it runs multiple weekends. Most festivals only run one weekend. Now, if I may take you to the festival just for a moment. Cratchit,
Yes, sir, Mr. Scrooge.
take a look. You ask how you can pay your debt by the day it falls due. I tell you that's none of my concern. You took my money. If you have no intention of repaying it, then you're not a debtor but a common thief. You will repay my money, principal and interest, on the day it falls due, or you will deal with the constable. Sincerely, Ebenezer Scrooge.
Oh, Scrooge, you are such an odious pot.
Indeed. We do this performances in the street, we do them on the stage, we invite the public to participate. The Holly Dickens Festival is run for 50 years. There is no admission. It's our gift to the community, to Southeast Michigan. We get visitors from the west side of the state. We get them from Indiana, Ontario, Ohio. We get buses that bring people in from Davison, from St. Clair Shores, from Toledo through the AAA. We get them from the west side of the state. So we get a lot of visitors that come to town. And each year, we have to raise the money that you heard fits in our budget. Right now, in front of us, we have a situation that we've never had before. Holly Area Schools is building a new middle school on the property where Carl Richter sat, where we stored our materials. That building has been torn down for the building of the new school. The village of Holly got displaced. They had to have a building. We got pushed out. Our stuff is currently sitting in the bay of a fire department, of an old fire department bay that is scheduled for remodeling, as well as the township is moving to build new offices. And as you know, we can't use tax dollars to facilitate a nonprofit group that does bring economic development to the downtown region of Holly. That being said, we have to come up with money to build a building to house the paraphernalia it takes to run the festival. Santa's Village, the scaffolding for the snow hill, we have a children's train, we have the stage, we have signage, we have all of this stuff and the storage of costumes. For those of you that thought this was normal attire, it's not. It's designed for the festival. So we're asking for this money, the opportunity, and we hope you can help us out. We need to raise over $100,000 to get our building put together and have a place to store this festival so the festival can continue. Thank you for an opportunity to
Welcome,
speak.
thank you guys very much. And this festival gains widespread support from everybody in the community. We just had a fundraiser last weekend to help raise some money.
The Golden Glitz Gala.
Right, and then how many volunteers participate in this every year?
There are over 40 people that are involved in this festival. As you can see, these are some that were able to come today. But it's all volunteer, nobody's paid.
Yeah, great widespread support. I thank you guys very much, and I thank the committee.
It runs
taking this
3
up.
weekends long, starting the weekend of Thanksgiving, so nobody has an excuse why you can't come.
Thanks,
Okay,
Scrooge.
thanks very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will open it up to the commission. Sorry. I have to go see who's on my list.
Yeah, you are.
So I have Commissioner Smith Charles, followed by Commissioner Long, followed by Commissioner Cabell.
Thank you. Mine is super germane. I just wanted to know if that mustache was real.
It is, and kudos to you. I can't tell you how many people congratulate me on my beard. It is a mustache. And I will tell you this, a couple years ago at the auto show, when it was back at Cobo Hall, I had I was not dressed like this, my wife and I were just there. 2 gentlemen walked up in front of me, stopped, they saluted and they said, "General Burnside, it's been a pleasure serving you." And they walked away and my wife was, "What was that?" I said, "It had to be 2 Civil War reenactors." General Burnside was part of the Civil War.
Funny.
But
Thank you.
kudos to you for getting it right.
Thanks, George.
And this one's real too.
Yes, that's what I was wondering too.
Oh, that's
Thank you very much.
All right.
Merry Christmas.
Is that it?
Very
good.
Thank you. Is that it, Commissioner Smith Charles? Okay, Commissioner Long.
Well, I don't know if now they left. I had a couple of questions, but maybe Commissioner Hoffman can answer. So they're adding a weekend, so that's adding to the cost, obviously, right? It says they're adding a weekend. And then the storage is adding to the cost. They lost their storage. And also, have we given to this project? I don't remember this
No,
before.
never have.
We have not. So my only question is, the 20,000, it's steep for
Not
one of our,
enough.
well, no, I think it's a lot, but I think it's great. I would think I would attend after seeing the performance. I would like to go to Holly on one of these weekends. I think it's a nice, holiday. It looks like a nice, festivity. But I'm just questioning the 20,000. I see their budget's more, and then, so you said they had a fundraiser, Commissioner Hoffman, do you know what they made on that fundraiser? Are they
George.
close to their goal?
So
Yeah,
to be
sorry,
clear,
I can ask
the
you, yeah.
$80,000 budget is the operating budget to put the festival on every year.
Okay,
That has nothing to do with the building we need to build. This is
Okay.
a separate drive. The Golden Gifts Gala, that was money to put the festival on. What does it cost to put a festival on? The festival board has to have insurance on an annual basis like anybody else does. The festival has to rent tents for the building. We have to pay for security. We have to pay for porta potties. Those are important.
oh, they're expensive too.
Gotta have those too. And so we have all of those expenses, the advertising expenses, the material that it takes to keep the props. We had to resurface the stage material. These are temporary stages. We take them out, we build them up on the weekend. They have to come down each Sunday night, go back up each Saturday for
Okay,
the 3 weeks.
Our question is, how much did we make off that gala?
But the Golden Glitz had nothing to do with this side of it. That,
okay, that's for the other.
that money went toward the 80,000 we have to raise to put on the festival.
Okay, so my question is, it says projected budget 75,000, but you're saying 80, so the 20,000 would be 25% from the county from our Board of Commissioners Special Projects.
Right.
So
It's this Saturday and Sunday for 3 weekends. And then, I guess what was I had another point going. Oh, how much attendance about do you get on the weekends? I don't see that anywhere. How many,
we get about 15,000 people a year
okay, for the whole year?
3 weekends.
for the 3 weekends.
Well, you did, but this is your first time you're doing 3 weekends, so did you get
No,
15?
we've always, no,
Oh, I thought
we-
somehow it said we're adding a weekend. Maybe I read that wrong.
we're always doing.
Okay, so 15,000 attendance. Okay, I'm good. Let someone else go. I'm just questioning the 20,000. Thank you. Not that I don't think the project, I think you guys are lovely up there, so.
Commissioner Cavell.
Yeah, I kinda had a similar question, so you've run for 50 years without any county money, but now you need a quarter of the budget to be coming from the government, which also is just ironic because of how Bob talks in this committee, so it's just weird. But that's not about you, it's about you.
That's about your commission.
Yeah, it's like,
Can I fix this? There's a little confusion here.
yeah,
The $80,000 is the budget to run the festival.
Right.
What we're needing money for is to create the facility to store the festival through the course of the year because we lost our housing. The old middle school got torn down. The Village of Holly had to move out. They took over the building that we were in, which was the old ambulance building. They had to redo it into a new village office. We have nowhere to put the festival during the course of the year for storage. This is an unusual situation because over the last 50 years, we've always had a place. All of a sudden this year, with the building being torn down, everybody got displaced. The Veterans Center had to find a place, the village had to find a place, and everybody's had to move. Well, those other groups were able to move with tax dollars. The veterans got another grant from someone to help them out. Holly Village, or the Dickens Festival is looking for a grant to help them create the building to store this big festival. Because when we're done, we take up about 3,000 square feet, so we need to build a pole barn so we can put the stuff in there for next year's festival. The stage itself is 20 by 12. It's 7, 8, 4 by 8 foot sections that you and I, 2 people it was designed, can build it, stack it, get it out of the street. The next weekend it goes back into the street. That all has to be stored till next year. There are buildings for vendors. This is a winter festival. You can't just come with a 10 by 10 canopy because you get blown away. So we have vendor booths that we construct the walls and put them together. It's quite a process to put the festival up. So this is a one-time thing to help us raise the 100,000 needed to build the building to put the festival in.
$100,000 to build
That is
a
not
pool.
how this is written.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not written.
Yeah, I know, this is what I'm saying, that's what.
You want so you need $100,000 to build a pole barn.
To build the
And
building,
you want us to give you 20% of that money. 20K.
That's
Yeah.
not how
Okay.
this proposal
It
reads
isn't.
at all.
No,
This
that's what I was
proposal reads
asking.
We would be giving $20,000
For the 75,000 for the
toward the
festival.
$75,000
Well, it
budget
is
of the
for the
Holly
festival.
Festival.
Right,
No, the way
for
you,
the budget. It
Yeah.
doesn't,
For the event itself, not for.
Right.
Right.
Correct.
And this is
Cause
something
also, I'm skeptical, cause like,
well,
I grew up on a farm, we had a pole barn, it
didn't
was,
cost $100,000.
yeah, that's, I mean, I know this was the 90s, but like also
Right.
like, that's not how much a pole barn costs, does it?
it costs more than that.
Yeah, so you said you need 100K,
Because we've already been raising money separate from the
Sure.
festival to do that. But if you have to donate it to the festival, then it would just allow us to move money the other
Yeah,
way.
they just have to move it around.
Somehow we
The
have
whole
to.
Different than what
conversation
we
I
do.
always
then that's,
had.
Okay.
that's corp
This-
counsel.
This is
No,
part
no,
of the
no.
budget
All right,
for the festival.
time out.
We gotta ask the lawyers.
Yeah, we need to make sure that
This could be a
we're funding the
appropriated.
proper kind of thing. There are some
Can we?
things that we can fund out of our special projects and some that we can't because, okay, so if we're gonna do this, we wanna make sure it's recorded as going in the right kind of fund. I think there's a question about,
Can we
I
do
see it
for a
in here
building?
several times, not to jump in on everybody, but this is a one-time deal, right? We haven't given the 20,000 in the past and we're not planning on
No,
coming
never
back
given
next year and
anything.
asking for it again.
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Can we
Okay,
give it for a building?
Commissioner Cavell, I think you still have the floor, and then I'm gonna give it to Commissioner Powell.
Yeah, just seeing the difference in wanting to double check with the staff and the corp council to make sure we don't go outside of scope. If it's okay, because this isn't a thing for the festival in 3 weeks. Is it okay if we postpone this, talk about it in December, right? Get us some facts and figures, make sure the lawyers are cool with this type thing. Like bring it back in December or January, but if
It's different.
you don't need the money,
Let's go.
like our $20,000 isn't the deal breaker because also being a new vendor, this is a 3-month turnaround in payment
And you're doing it
anyways,
December.
even if you get paid. So like making it take 100 days instead of 80 days
And
for you to
then
get money if we do support it, if the lawyers say it's okay. Is everyone okay with, I just wanna throw out maybe tabling this till the December meeting or perhaps
Postpone.
January, postpone, yeah.
Before we do that, may I?
Yeah, I'm done with my part.
I talked to Jerome Raska, who's now the chairman of the thing, and he assured me this is for the festival. That's why he gave me all the budget numbers.
That's
He
our
just
hearing.
texted me a little while ago because he told me the budget is now 80,000 for this year. This money is gonna be used for the festival, not anything else. And like George said, if they make the money over here to run the festival, they still have the issue, but that's another issue. They'll have to get that money somewhere else. Cause this is not for a building, this is not the way
That's not what he's
we were
saying.
set up. This is for the festival, and that's, you know, talking to the chairman of the Dickens Festival, he and I had that conversation when they filled out the application, that's what this is for. This is for the budget of the festival, nothing else,
Okay, you said 80,000.
right?
This says 75,000.
Then he said 100.
He's got the biggest
So-
figure.
Just for clarification, so commissioners know that staff is doing their job, when the item was submitted, that was the budget.
Yeah.
They obviously have been working over the last couple of weeks, they've gotten new information from vendors and they've now realized the budget has increased.
Right, and I
So
get
they're
that.
going off of
I get
last
that.
year's budget, when they
Right.
submit the project, and then as soon as we get additional information,
Oh,
we
I
don't
get
try
you
to
guys
hide
are-
it, we try to give
Right.
it to you,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah. Right.
we're trying to communicate.
You're doing great, Mike, yeah.
No, we're
Everyone's
not
cool
saying
with you.
bye.
I think
No
Bob needs to
arrows
get his
at
story
anybody,
straight.
just
Okay.
wanna
No,
make
we're
sure
not.
it's all,
But I just got
I
it
think
from
it's
Jerome
different.
Raska like
But he's
a
saying
half
something
hour
different
ago.
right behind us.
What
about
he is
the
talking
new budget.
about is that the festival is used to raise money. What I'm hearing from the group is what they plan to do with that money is put a building up so that way they can lower their costs and store things over time. The county, the proposal that you see in front of you is not to put up a building.
That's
It is to
correct.
give money to a festival, its
Exactly.
overall goal is to raise funds, and a part of that is to be able to put up a building.
That's
So
correct.
we've talked a lot about a building, that's just one objective of the overall festival. This, in front of you today is a allocation to that festival, whether it be 20,000 or lower or no amount.
And
That's up to the
understand,
committee.
I'm not the director of the festival.
Right.
I just,
Yeah.
I know one of the challenges that's
But I
in
gotta-
front of the
I'm gonna
festival.
copy
Thank
it.
you.
And I wasn't part of putting that together, so I apologize if I outspoke.
no, you're
Right.
fine, you're fine. We're just trying to clarify the
Right.
facts. I have
I'm
Commissioner
gonna
Powell
pass,
next.
I'm gonna pass to
right,
Long or Ajay, I know they had.
Oh, he had it.
Yeah, Ajay was before me too.
No,
so.
I'm fine. Really, I guess my thought is very similar to Charlie's. Like, I feel like to vet this out and make sure we're all on the same page. I'm fine supporting it, you know, no disrespect to Bob or
Right.
anything, but at the same time, $20,000 is a lot of money. I know most of our projects tend to be in that $5,000 to $10,000 range unless there's, you know, a huge exception. So 20,000 to me is a lot for something like this. You know, I'm happy to support them, but I'm wondering if maybe we should take some time, let's do some due diligence. And I'd be happy to offer an amendment to pull it back if that would change the pot, whether it's now or later, was the other thing I was gonna say.
And if I can just add into that, I think it absolutely is an option. I just don't want the confusion in terms of what Commissioner Cavell said. I think it's absolutely right. There's probably not a rush in contributing to the building, right? They have a long process ahead. If the objective though of the committee is to sponsor the event and have our logo and our county sponsorship, then we want to move forward with it. Now, does that mean it has to be today? No, of course, Commissioner. You could have a special meeting. We could, work with them to figure out exactly when that deadline is. So don't mean to say that this can't be tabled, but I just wanna say that when we're talking about the two objectives, the building, that's a future
Yeah.
objective that, of course, if the board wanted to contribute to, there's no rush at all. Even with the sponsorship, I wanna be clear, there's no rush. This has not been rushed. This could still be tabled and brought to a future meeting and still give us time to be included in the sponsorships. That's why we give,
Isn't
we
Thanksgiving, which
do
is
this
2
in that timely way,
weeks.
so that way you all have the ability to have these conversations.
Commissioner Long?
So that's what now I get, you know, Thanksgiving is in what, 2.5 weeks, so I get
Right.
that, we wouldn't be able to promote the county and stuff. I am just, cause I've heard two different things now, even if we're giving for the festival, it seems like it's going for the building. And I don't know if we've ever, it is, Bob, that's what he's
is
telling us.
not.
But, okay, but I don't know if we've ever supported a sponsorship for a building.
We're not supporting a sponsorship for a building, as it was explained in the application states and the conversation Mike has had with other people. This is solely for the festival, how they budget their own other
So if we
money.
don't vote for this today, the festival will go on then?
The festival will go on,
Do they have the
absolutely.
money for the festival to go on? That's what I wanna ask, because I propose that we maybe bump it down a little bit.
Make a motion.
And I mean, you can slip my
Go.
tires on the way home, but.
No, make a motion, I wanna
I mean,
get,
I don't know if I think 20,000 is kind of higher
Okay.
on our higher end of things. I'm not saying, I'm actually gonna go to this after their little performance. I think
You
it
don't
sounds
want
like a
to.
wonderful, do you wanna come with me?
I was, but now I don't know if I wanna go
Yeah,
with
we're not
you.
invited.
Cause the tire slip?
No, but I
No.
think we should just vote as it is.
You like the 20? You
Up or
guys are
down?
good with that?
Let's do it.
no, I'll entertain a motion
Well, I
if you
mean,
want to adjust it.
what do you guys suggest? I mean, it's a one time, they're not gonna come back next year for 20?
I think we're not,
Go ahead.
Commissioner
Before I
Cabell,
make a
do you wanna
motion,
make
go
a
ahead.
motion?
well, I was gonna say, I think cause we aren't in a rush, the festival is happening. We can sponsor the festival for its 52nd year in December or January. We can talk about the building in December or January. I say, I make a motion to postpone this till the December Finance Committee meeting.
Wait, don't we have a motion already or no?
No, I
Or
don't.
amend the motion to
Yeah, we do have
postpone, or
one.
whatever the parliamentary rules is. Let's,
Yeah,
let's
we
make
have
sure
a
everyone gets
motion
their
on the
story
floor
straight.
to sponsor the Dickens Festival.
Let's see, let's make everyone get their story straight and then come back to us in December, whatever that
Okay,
means.
excuse me,
Let's
we
do that.
already have our story straight. I explained it to you, Mike's explained it to you. I wanna move forward with this. If you wanna adjust the amount that you, for the sponsorship, I am open to any
Compromise.
suggestion.
Let's do 15.
Okay.
Let's compromise.
I don't wanna support this, okay, if we're gonna do this, I'm just gonna say since I still have, I don't wanna support this because it feels sketch now.
It's
Yeah,
what?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It feels not legitimate, so let's
Okay,
get the story straight, understand what's
Story
really going
straight.
on, get some paperwork to validate it, like see some quotes or whatever, some legit paperwork.
We have a motion by
that says we
Cavell
I don't.
to postpone to a date certain. We haven't had any support yet. So if there is no support, we can move on to another motion or we can.
Yeah, I don't think we have
Is-
to
is-
postpone, I
do-
agree.
Does anybody wanna second the motion to,
No, I
to
think let's
postpone
work it
this?
out. Let's work it out.
So now you could
seeing
accept.
that
work it out.
fails, so now we can move on
Go
to
ahead.
another
So I
motion.
would amend it, right?
Uh-huh.
To say, hey, look, let's put 10 on the table, so we'll cut it in half, right?
Yeah.
And again, if it fails, it fails, right?
Okay,
But
moved by
but
Commissioner
but
Rahman.
at least it fits within the usual
What we usually
scope of-
do.
Right, what we usually do.
Okay,
And I just wanna make one other comment, you know, and I actually picked this up from Commissioner Cavell a few months ago.
Nice.
I may or may not agree with any of these projects,
I
right?
know.
But at the end of the day, here's what it, you know, and this is, I've really learned this from Charlie.
Uh-huh.
If it's important to you and your district
And
and
your
your
commissioner,
people, and
right.
you're the commissioner for that district,
Right,
I may completely disagree with this, but I support Bob,
Right.
and if this is important to him,
that's what I wanna
and he
kill.
hasn't brought anything else to the table as far as I know in
Let
2
his
years
tires
sitting
out.
here.
Yeah.
So I guess, you know, $10,000 is a lot of money, I don't wanna make light of that, but I think our special projects are to support our
Right.
communities.
Right.
Based on what each commissioner deems appropriate
Yeah,
for their
that's good.
community.
10's good.
I don't have this going on in my community, so I can't speak about it, right? But if he's telling me this is
But
important.
Bob's invited us, we can go.
That's fine, so I guess my point is, I would amend it to scale it back to 10.
Yeah,
And
I
put it
agree.
back out there.
Commissioner Weipert has
Supported it.
Okay.
Okay.
So we don't kill it.
all right,
I'm good.
thank you,
And so we
Okay.
can prompt the vote on the amendment.
thank you.
Right.
Yeah, let's go, yeah.
Commissioner Cavell?
You know what, it feels good to hear my words come back to me. Also, while I think it's sketch or whatever, the whole point though is, it's not going in someone's pocket, it's
Right.
helping the Dickens Festival.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Regardless, okay,
Yeah.
Alright.
that's cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So let's
Or no, I
prompt
think
the
that's a good
vote
compromise.
on the
Let's go.
amendment.
Yep,
Alright.
We're gonna prompt the vote on the amendment.
we're good.
Got it. Okay, great.
Sometimes compromise is good. Good, I'm good.
And then we're gonna go back, we first have to see
We don't
how we
wanna
voted.
postpone it, cause it's in 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks.
There's 8 yeas, 0 nays.
Good,
Okay.
there you go.
So that passes, and so then we'll go back to the main motion. 8A, sponsorship of the annual Holly Dickens Festival.
You already have a
For
motion.
the amendment.
Yeah,
Amended.
as
So we
amended.
just need to go
So
ahead and vote
Yep.
unless anybody has
Good.
any further comments. I hope you don't.
Yeah,
Let's
I'll
prompt
vote
the vote.
then for it too, so that's good. Everyone voting, not to cause trouble, none of us
That
want to
was-
cause
Come on,
trouble.
Charlie, you can do
A
it.
lot of work. All right, motion
That's good,
carries.
because we wanted to support it, we wanted to support it, I just think it's a lot.
Nobody
Yeah.
ever
Good.
said
We did wanna
finance
support it,
wasn't
we just wanted
lively.
Am I allowed to make one last
And
comment?
hey,
Madam Chair.
Yes.
two different
Am I allowed
things,
to make
sorry.
one last comment?
Yes.
I just want to apologize if I muddied the water. I don't like the term sketchy.
Sure.
I didn't mean it to be sketchy. I'm not the
You just
direct.
need to know Charlie. He
Yeah,
talks
so-
like
Yeah, Charlie just, Charlie uses a lot of,
But in the
I didn't
world
like
of
adverbs.
Charlie's sketchy.
in the world
that
of
an adverb?
politics, none of us
Sketchy
like
is
the
an
word
adverb,
sketchy.
right?
That's
ever.
true.
verb.
That being said,
It's a
I do
sketchy
want to
verb.
thank you. I appreciate for the help. And I was asked to fill in for Mr. Raska, who had to be in Ohio because this meeting got moved. And
Yeah.
I wasn't
But we didn't
aware-
wanna vote no on it, it seems
Had
like
I
a
had a
nice
meeting and
project.
understood what Nat said.
You're a very nice Scrooge.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, you are nice,
It's all
Ebenezer.
part of the
coming.
festival and keeps
Oh, no,
it
we
going.
kinda
Thanks,
Scrooge,
George.
we kinda Scrooge jumped, we
Aw.
went from 20 to 10 right now.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
even though it's not fitting, let me just leave you with humbug.
Yeah, that's good, that is fitting.
Very fitting.
Yeah, thank you. That's
All
good.
right.
You wanna kill it.
Yeah, okay, so we can move on to item
Now, we don't
8B.
need the debris.
Aid to Hospitality House to
No.
alleviate food insecurity in economically disadvantaged
Well, I like the
areas.
food.
I will move by Commissioner Rahman, supported by Commissioner Powell.
So we do have Susan virtually to answer any questions.
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, we have Susan.
I can speak,
Meyer.
I can speak
So
on it
let's
too.
see.
We do have Susan, who's the director of Hospitality House, but I'm happy to at least just put a little intro into it. So Hospitality House is a food pantry in the Commerce Township area. It serves a variety of communities. They don't have any geographic boundaries or restrictions. They have been incredible serving the southwest portion of Oakland County for those facing food insecurity. They help approximately, I believe it's eight, and Susan, feel free to correct me, but I think it's like 850 families twice a month to the tune of 70,000 pounds of food. So they're doing incredible work. They're also helping in the schools for kids that
Yeah,
don't
this is
have
good.
lunches, right, for
We just saved
through,
that
I think the
last one.
periods when school is out of session. So they're doing a lot of great work. We have supported them in the past, so this is a little bit of an exception. Last year we did a 5,000, this year I had upped it to 10. And originally it was scheduled to be a sponsorship through their fundraiser. And I know there was some discussion I had with Chair and some other folks that, hey, look, we wanna help the pantry, we just don't want it to be a contribution to the fundraiser. So we sort of revamped it slightly and now made it a direct contribution to the pantry. I believe the numbers in here as well. Total budget of Hospitality House is approximately 1.5 million, comprised of $645,000 in monetary revenue and just shy of 900,000 of in-kind support. They are supported by Gleaners,
Forgotten Harvest.
thank you.
75.
And a variety of other community organizations, so just to sort of set it up, and Susan, feel free to jump in and add whatever you think is appropriate.
Yeah, so thank you for having me here today, first off, and thanks for your support, Ajay. So Hospitality House, food insecurity is on the rise. It's on the rise nationally, it's on the rise here in Michigan. So over the last 2 years, our numbers have increased by 150%. So by the end of 2024, we anticipate, and we know we'll be there, serving well over 2,000 households. And these are unduplicated numbers, consisting of 5,000 individuals. And for sure, meeting and surpassing the number of 1.3 million pounds of food distributed. How we value that food is through Feeding America, gives us a value per pound. So that comes out to us distributing over 2.5 million pounds of food. As Ajay said, to our direct community and beyond. It's not just in Commerce, it's throughout Oakland County. So we're looking to the commission to help us support these growing numbers. He also mentioned our other growing program is we have a weekend food program. So in the state of Michigan, kids are getting free breakfast and free lunch. And those very kids that actually rely on those meals throughout the week to be fed are going home hungry on the weekends. So we started this a couple years ago when we were only in 2 schools with 32 students. We are now, last year we were in 9 schools with 310 students. This year we're already in 13, and right now we're in Walled Lake Consolidated Schools, which crosses a lot of borders. But we're already in 13 schools, and we'll hit the number of 400 or 450 by the end of the year. Each week, kids are added to the program. So what we're giving them is these drawstring backpacks that have the equivalent of 6 meals and 4 snacks in them. If you look at the numbers monthly, the number of meals and number of snacks we're providing, it's over when we hit the 400 number, which we're almost there, it's over 9,600 meals and 6,004 snacks that we're providing monthly to these students. So but those are our 2 pillars. We have our client choice pantry, which means people are not handed a box of food. They come into our pantry and they're given a grocery cart to shop a mini grocery store to get the food they need and want. Treats them with dignity and respect, and it cuts down on waste. We don't just have shelf stable, we have fresh food, we have protein that we offer. So that's our one pillar, and the other pillar that's just come about in the last 2 years is our weekend food program.
Okay, Commissioner Powell.
I'm just gonna say I thank Ajay for bringing this. Food insecurities, my district is happening. It's actually, a little shocking to me to even know that this is going on, like in a Commerce Township, because the perception in the suburbs is, oh, we got the money, we don't need the food help and stuff like that. So I commend you, Susan, for stepping up to run such a location. And I just thank you because I see this and everything she said, I can follow it from even with the kids in the schools. Because our sheriff department partner with some food companies or something to give our kids food on the weekend. So everything she's saying, I can validate. I know what's happening. And I just thank you and thank you for bringing it to us to assist in this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I just wanted to ask Susan, so the whole, right, I believe the whole, just so people that don't have children in school, the whole state of Michigan, again, this year provides the breakfast and the lunch free. But I have to shout out that I'm glad you're helping for extra food because those meals are pretty small. I have a 16-year-old and I said, just take the free lunch. But I actually pack them a lunch too. So they eat 2. I'm fortunate enough that I have the funding to make them a sandwich to bring for football and stuff, but there are many people that don't. Those lunches are pretty small for growing teenage high school kids. So I appreciate that you're providing extra food. We have to think of that also. You may get food, but it's not a lot of food. Yeah. So for you to provide for the weekend, I appreciate it. Like I said, I'm fortunate I make him a second lunch, but he does take, all his buddies take the free one too, because that's, the Michigan gave it. But it is small portions. So I appreciate, people need to eat on the weekend and when they get home from school and stuff. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Commissioner Cavell.
Well, just as we were talking about school lunches, just to remind us all the impact of elections and policy and stuff. The trifecta of Democrats in Lansing spent $164 million in 2023 to make school lunches free and breakfast free for everyone in Michigan. And that wasn't true until they did that in 2023. So just first. Cool. Second of all, it's costing $200 million to do it this year, but they still did it. So just elections and policy affecting you personally. But Susan, this is sad. Kind of what Angie was saying. I mean, we're the finance committee. Is there something you would offer to us just when we think, right, we have public health and safety come, we have our health department come, we have people coming to us just yesterday and I think maybe later today, we'll be talking about WIC. I mean, is there any insight you can give us as someone on the ground about how we should be thinking about our county budget as it relates to vulnerable and poor people or people with food insecurity? Just any parting wisdom?
As far as supporting it?
Or food, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, how we operate is obviously you saw our budget there. I mean, obviously we need cash to operate, but you also see the in-kind portion. So to support your communities, and we support all of your communities, Hospitality House does. You'll be surprised, people drive to us just because of what we offer and the dignity and respect they get. But people doing food drives, if the county can do a food drive, volunteerism. Currently at Hospitality House doing all this work, we only have 2 full-time paid staff and a young kid that's working for us right now. We're very volunteer driven. So anytime people can push out the move, like to volunteer at a pantry or somewhere, you're truly helping to offset our expenses. So on any given day, you come into Hospitality House, you have the 2 paid staff there and a young guy who comes in a handful of hours a week. But the rest are all volunteers, 10 to 15 volunteers at the pantry at any given time. So to give back to the community, it's financially that we need support. It's the volunteer. It's doing food drives that help us keep up with this growing demand, but also have the variety on the shelf. And if any of you in your local communities have the CBDG block grants, I've approached some cities and I'm told, oh, it's already going to this area. If you can open it up, a discussion how to support different areas. Currently, we get it from Novi, which is our #1 city in Oakland County where our clients are coming from currently, with Wixom and Walled Lake right there. But and then Wixom, we presented at their city council meeting yesterday. So there are some of your towns that have that type of block grant funding to offer as well. Not sure if I'm answering what you were asking, but there's lots of different ways to support nonprofits.
Yeah, thank you.
That's why we
One
don't
more
have.
quick thing.
Okay, one more quick one
I
and
will
then
be
we're gonna
very
vote.
quick. So you said volunteers, so if you have a National Honor Society, that's a good source for them to volunteer there, because they're looking for my son's in it. So they're looking to volunteer from Walled Lake Northern. I can direct some of those kids to you to ask and over
Yes,
the
please do.
holidays or.
We love when the National Honor Society kids come out and volunteer. And I'm working with Walled Lake Central right now. They do a food drive every year for us that brings in like 3,000 pounds of food. And they also collect last year $14,000. I'm working with the superintendent and the principals of Walled Lake Northern and Walled Lake Western to maybe do something in the spring together too to support us.
Okay, I'm gonna pass it along. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I just do wanna mention too, Oakland County does have a day of service. So Oakland County as employees go there, I think a couple times a year, Susan, right? There's one coming up.
There's one coming up on November 23rd. It's our second day of our Thanksgiving box distribution. I didn't tell you everything we did because I didn't want to take up too much time. But we're having record numbers of Thanksgiving meals we're distributing too. And Oakland County is coming on the 23rd.
So it's our
of this.
people.
Okay, good,
All right.
thank you.
Ajay, can you get that information
Let's
shared
go
with
ahead
us?
and prompt the vote.
Yeah, we're good, thank you.
I was standing in the hallway listening.
Okay.
Sure.
I was.
Not
Yeah,
eating.
0 nays.
You're coming up soon, Mr. Joss. Motion carries.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
true.
trying to get out of here today.
Yeah.
Well, the next 3 should be quick, so.
Yeah, they should.
Hard to
Never
say.
say that.
I know. Next item is 8C, the 2024 Oakland County Parks and Rec
Well, that's
property tax levy, millage rate based on the November 5th, 2024 election, where we passed the millage.
I move it.
Moved by Commissioner Smith Charles, supported by Commissioner Powell.
Yes, yes. I'm a Parker. I mean, I supported that. I ain't a nature girl, but I support it.
We're gonna turn you into an
I know. Gwen's working on me.
Good morning, afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commission Chair Markham and members of the committee. Michael Lohmeyer, Equalization Officer of Oakland County Equalization Department. I was here back October 16th with the apportionment report. I had indicated there was the Oakland County Parks and Recreation millage was up for a vote this November election, and I would return with the 4029 for the revision of the park millage rate, and here I am. That really was the only change. So I'm here with just the revised L 4029 so we can take it before you. It'll go before the Board of commission then hopefully for information so we can update all the tax bills and things for the local and state treasurer's office. And then I will return on, I believe it's December 3rd with the final apportionment report. And I stand ready to answer any additional questions, but that's all I really have for you.
Okay, Commissioner Long?
So I just wanted to ask, is the, cause I always forget, I know the winter bill is the cheaper bill. But is Parks and Recreation normally on the winter bill, or are they normally on the summer bill?
That's why I'm here. It's on the winter bill.
All the time, so it would be replacing on the winter bill.
Yes.
All right. No other questions? Let's prompt the vote. While we're waiting, I just want to thank the voters of Oakland County for passing the millage. I think the fact that it passed with a very high percentage shows that people value our parks. They value our Parks and Recreation Department. I think Oakland
But they don't
County is
value their money.
doing it right, and it will afford us the opportunity to acquire some property and fix some facilities and expand our reach, and it's thank you to the voters.
And to accommodate the legacy costs of all of the parks north of M59. So it was definitely a trade-off whether they knew what they were voting for or not. Cause let's just say we would be liquidating versus acquiring. So I'm very grateful.
We would not be liquidating anything, and it was an 85% increase, so you guys should all be proud.
I'm just
That's
saying.
what we're saying.
Yeah, they are proud.
Yeah.
Jesus.
A lot of consternation north of M59.
Okay.
Where the
That's
Dickens
on the
Festival
parks
is.
millage. It's 5 yeas and 3 nays, so it passes. Commissioner Powell? you
Yeah,
have a
cause I
comment?
was gonna say for a long time, north of us,
Oh,
is
we
where most
know.
of the parks were.
Yeah.
So this is actually a benefit for them, cause y'all been there the longest. And even though we did all the adjustments for South Oakland, we recently just did that when we took leadership.
Though.
So I just wanna clear that too, so we know the history here. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Powell. Okay. So, moving on, we have item 8D, the new service with the 67th District Court, Genesee County, City of Detroit, Village of Romeo, an extension of service with the townships of Adrian, Village of Akron, and U.S. Probation Eastern Michigan for access to connectivity and Clemens. I almost said it
Long of a
right.
title. Yeah,
Moved by Commissioner Hoffman,
title alone.
supported by Commissioner Powell. All right, floor is yours.
Good afternoon, thank you. First off, we have 3 IT agreement renewals, which are standard practice for the IT department to have the agreement renewed every 5 years. That's Adrian Township, Akron, and the U.S. Probation Department. Those are standard renewals. The 67th District Court out of Genesee County is coming on board as a result of Grand Blanc Township Police Department primarily recently joined. You approved that back a couple of meetings ago. Grand Blanc is a very busy agency, and it will benefit the agency, our current member, Grand Blanc, as well as Fenton, who is up in Genesee County. If they could submit their citations electronically to the court, greatly reduces their staffing requirements as far as the labor in that. Detroit PD is a new agency, is coming on as a search-only agency to access our database, and we are. And then Romeo PD is currently coming on as they're not taking on CAB or more of our records management services.
Okay, anybody have any questions or comments? Commissioner Cavell?
Yeah, can you, if you don't mind, if you have it handy, just like round numbers of like the financial position of Clemens?
I don't have those numbers handy. I would round numbers for the whole of Clemens. I don't have those numbers handy right now, sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. What I was trying to, I guess what I'm getting to is, this is something that creates a budget deficit.
We are, to answer your, I don't know if this actually creates a budget deficit. They're covering their current cost.
Yep.
They would do further analysis be required to see if there's an additional budget deficit. We know that we do receive between records, the Clemens Records Management and the FRMS, a county subsidy of about almost $2 million a year, I believe it is.
That's what I mean, not deficit, but county subsidy of $2 million.
Two
Goes
Clemens.
to Clemens, to make sure it's stood up per year, 2 million.
Right.
Just this'll come back when we talk about the sheriff contracts. Thank you. This is not a you thing, you're doing great.
No, no.
Yeah, yeah.
Anybody else? If nobody has any other questions or comments, let's prompt the vote.
The next, the hard one.
He already had it up before I even say it. She's good.
Oh, yeah. Smith Charles?
I was still thinking,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know,
You have
sometimes.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
Sometimes I think.
Okay.
Right there in your category.
Next, we have item 8E, the 2024 fourth quarter IT development report.
I'll move it.
Is moved by Commissioner Smith Charles, supported by Commissioner Powell.
Yeah, right there, yeah. Yes, isn't it?
All right, you will notice I'm not Rod Davenport, even though his name is on the agenda. He could
Oh,
not
yes,
be
the
here
other
today.
one was just receiving
Tammy
about
Shepherd.
communications, I think one was the community.
All right,
IT.
welcome.
Thank you. Tammy Shepherd, ITBRM. I'm here to present our regular quarterly development transfer. And if you remember, I'm explaining this a little bit every time, just so you guys are clear on what you're voting for. So basically, IT does our work all quarter long. We track our time. Fiscal services, they put money in a pot that sits outside of the regular department budgets. And once IT figures out how much time we spent supporting all the different departments, this process with this resolution goes and takes the money out of the separate pot and it spreads it across all the different department budgets to say exactly how much benefit they received from IT's time that quarter. So this is a budgetary amendment to amend the budget and move the money into the departmental budgets to account for the time that IT is going to bill to them.
Okay, any questions from anybody? Commissioner Cavell?
Hey Tammy, can you just talk about some of the red lines in the budget?
Yes.
Yellow
So the
highlighted
red
things?
and the yellow, so the red lines are basically indicating the actual debit that's gonna be made from that pot. Technical terms here, you're the IT crew, not accounting people. So thank you. So that's an accounting standard that basically says we're gonna subtract it from there, that's why it's red. And then it's gonna be moved into the black for our revenue. And then the highlighted yellows, apologies for the little bit of a formatting issue on the report. Those are the subtotals for those sections. So there's a governmental, which is the general fund departments, and then the non-governmental, which are the departments that are funded by proprietary funds or external funding. Those two yellows are the subtotals for those two different types of categories.
Up to this point in the year, that's how much they've
Yes.
spent?
Yep.
Okay.
For this quarter.
And so then, could I ask, without perhaps, because we're talking fourth quarter and then year to date, so things should be kind of truing up.
Yep, that's equal, yep.
What areas were over budget, what areas were under budget?
That is a great question.
So I would say, yeah, this is not, Jeanette McKenna, also IT, this is not specifically tracking to the budget. So this is reporting the labor hours worked on projects, which oftentimes will cross fiscal years. So this is strictly a reporting of the hours and the development work that were charged to the departments for those active projects that we're working on for the fourth quarter only. So the communication item earlier with the, what we call the executive summary report, that lists every project in the IT portfolio that we're working on and the number of hours that have been spent and the summary of that, and that does tie back to this quarterly transfer as well.
Commissioner, you'll see the budget to actual moving the fourth quarter from finance.
Thanks.
At the high level.
Cool.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon.
Okay, if there's no other questions, let's prompt the vote. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Moving on into item 9, Economic Development and Infrastructure Committee recommendations. Starting with 9A, the grant acceptance from the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy for the Community Energy Management Grant. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Moved by Commissioner Smith-Charles, supported by Commissioner Rahman.
So as mentioned in the EDI committee, this is a grant through the state of Michigan by way of the federal government from the Energy Efficiency Block Grant funds. It's $100,000 to support our energy study and energy efficiency upgrades as a result of that study. And as mentioned, it's $100,000. So this in front of you is just the acceptance of that grant.
Okay, anybody have any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, let's prompt the vote.
We gotta have some easy items today.
We've made them wait all morning, so.
No, I know, we gotta have some. And I like the repeats from Econ.
Next year, let's all remember how easy EPA Eagle
there you
stuff
go.
should be. So remember that.
Let me refresh. Sometimes we don't.
Glad you're listening, yeah.
You have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have the Oakland
had already
County
did it once.
steam tunnel repair item.
I'll move it.
Moved by Commissioner Smith-Charles, supported by Commissioner Weipert.
Well, we did hear that, most of
Steam
us.
tunnel?
Yeah, we heard
Steam
most of it.
tunnels.
What?
Yeah.
Steam,
Underneath
learn
for
something.
Halloween.
No, this your world.
Underground.
I learned stuff this morning.
Good afternoon. Hopefully this
afternoon.
one is the easy one. Open.
Yeah.
Steam tunnel repairs,
That's my
so
questions already.
as you might know, there's a steam distribution system that is housed below grade in tunnels that service a portion of our buildings on campus. So this project identifies 2 areas, continuing to facilitate the repairs that we've done in the past. We're just continuing with those repairs. So these 2 areas, one area is a little over 300 feet in length, and the other area is almost spot on 300 feet. So the county has 2 miles of steam tunnels. This is just a portion. When you think about 300 feet, to put that in perspective, a football field between goalposts is 160 feet. So we're looking at 2 football field lengths for one area and 2 football field lengths in the other area. So waterproofing is a portion of this project. We have water infiltration that's happening in these 2 portions of the tunnels. So we're really looking at identifying and repairing the cracks where the water infiltration is coming into. Expansion joints along the floor, wall, and ceiling. We're looking at going through and repairing those expansion joints as well. We have some shaling of concrete. We're gonna do concrete repairs. The steam tunnels support pipes in there, and there's metal stanchions or supports that run from the floor up to support those pipes. So where that water has come in has corroded the base of those metal stanchions, so we're going to remove the corroded portions, and we're gonna come in and provide new metal base at those supporting metal pipe locations too. So, again, critical, so we'd like to focus on these areas and get going on. This is a CIP project identified for the CIP 2025. So we're looking for recommendation to move forward.
Is this going okay?
Commissioner Powell.
So these tunnels, they're on this campus and they run underground through all our buildings on both sides, Pontiac and Waterford? Do they connect that way as well? Oh, okay.
I'm going to it.
Oh, okay. I can look at the map. Sorry, I didn't look at the map. See, she didn't blast me. Thank you.
Commissioner Cavell.
The steam, isn't that, is Aaron still here? Isn't steam not the most energy efficient way to do things?
Right. So at one time,
Did you?
steam was a very energy efficient mode of energy provisions. But since then, as we modernized, there are more energy efficient. We're also looking to meet decarbonization goals as well. So in the future, we're working on a plan to decarbonize, and part of that is eliminating steam if possible. These tunnels are pretty significant, supporting our other infrastructure too, and support the county facilities. But we gotta keep the steam and those tunnels up and running in the meantime for that decarbonization plan to take place.
Okay, fair enough.
Good question.
Yeah.
All right,
Well, I had an excellent one.
if there's no other questions on this item, let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
Because he's also
On repeat.
What?
I'm not in trouble.
That's funny.
I'm supporting it though. I would never be in the tunnel.
Oh.
That looks disgusting. Good job. I commend y'all that do that.
is, your own ass. Okay. Motion carries, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 9C
Ooh,
is.
you out of here, Ed?
Yeah, look at it, run. Run.
Thank you, Ed.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
What you see?
Grant acceptance from the US EPA
Okay,
for
we did
the
this,
Brownfield
yeah.
Assessment
Got it.
Coalition Grant.
You got it.
Moved by Commissioner Weipert, supported by Commissioner Powell. Okay.
Yeah, we did it.
Hello.
Good.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Kristen Wilson with Oakland County in the Economic Development Department. Before you today is a grant application acceptance, a grant acceptance. We've already applied and were awarded for our brownfield program. So these are our blighted, contaminated properties to do the assessments to figure out what contaminants out there and how much are in the property itself. With me today is Brad Hansen. He's our project manager for this particular grant and also our brownfield program. So I'll turn it over to Brad to give you some more specifics.
This is our seventh go around on this grant with US EPA since 2001. This grant cycle is $1.5 million. We have grant partners this go around with the City of Southfield and Community Housing Network. We're currently entering into interlocal agreements with those two entities. And we're also working with purchasing to go out to bid for our environmental consultants. We're hoping to choose anywhere from 3 to 5 consultants to actually do the work, doing the phase 1 and phase 2 work, the environmental investigations. $1.5 million is by far the most we've ever received for this type of work. The most we've received historically is $1 million over a 3-year grant period. This is $1.5 million over 4 years, so we have a lot of work ahead of us. Looking forward to it. I think this is gonna help a lot of projects. It's gonna create a lot of economic development and create a lot of jobs. So looking forward to getting rolling on these projects.
Yep, the assessments are countywide, and so we also have the intake forms that communities and property owners can fill out in order to be reviewed and eligible for grant funding.
Yeah, you mentioned that in the earlier meeting, and before I call on Commissioner Powell, I had a thought about that. How are we communicating that to the local communities? I mean, you said to us, oh, tell your communities, but is there a formal communication going out from the county to all of the CBTs?
Yes, so a portion of the funding can be used for public engagement and community outreach, and so that'll be part of this grant cycle to create a one-pager to send out to all of the CBTs and eligible entities to apply.
Okay, good, thank you. Commissioner Powell.
So for my just for me to understand, so I know our brownfield here in the county has helped the city of Pontiac, right? So it's just the same process where they will come, if we got developers that wanna do projects, they may need to shave off some funding needs with this part, and this is something that we partner with the community or the project to help with that brown. Is this like some of the funding that kinda help things like that?
This will help them identify, get them to that point.
Okay.
These will be the dollars to help them identify what contaminants are in the ground, to see how much cost it's gonna take to get to the point that I believe you're referring to, is see how much help they'll need with tax incentives that will need to go to the city of Pontiac and to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority to go for
Okay,
those.
well, I just wanna say to my colleagues, our department, you two, I know y'all spend a lot of time in Pontiac helping us, and I just wanna thank you all. But they've been able to help a lot of development projects or just projects in general with what we do here. I hear a lot about it, but I have not had the time to just say thank you for making things happen for our projects in our city. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, let's prompt the vote. Okay, motion carries. So I have had a request to move an item from 11B, grant acceptance from Ducks Unlimited for the Wetlands Conservation Program, up
You do
into
A
the
and
next
B,
slot.
it's her, and then she could go.
Is it the same person for
Yes.
both?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, then both. We're gonna move the item 11, A and B.
For the sheriffs, cause she's been here a long.
Before the sheriff's discussions,
Yes,
which we
thank you.
expect to maybe be a little more lengthy.
Well, Dave.
So.
What makes you say that?
I move it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Support, yeah.
so we're moving
So
those.
just to clarify, that's a motion to recommend both A and B to the full board.
Correct.
Yeah,
And that was made by Hoffman and supported by Powell.
yeah, and then she can go, you know,
Okay. Come on up and,
for our sheriff stuff, and Dave's still working with them. Yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, so they're both moved at the same time, I'll give a brief
Yes,
overview
yep.
of both, okay, perfect. So the first grant in front of you is that DNR's off-road vehicle trail improvement program that we apply to every year for our Hollyoaks Off-Road Vehicle Park. This year we applied for $255,200 for electrical upgrades at the site. We have very minimal electricity out there, so this will bring additional electricity into the site to different key locations, both for our folks that are coming out and using the park and have things like air compressors and whatnot that they wanna plug in, but also really for us as a staff and for our corporate rentals who have to bring in lots of generators and other things that make it really hard to use the site for big events. So it's not the sexiest project out there, but it is much needed, and this grant will cover all of the costs of that.
Great.
excellent.
Thank you.
And then, Commissioner Cavell.
I just wanted to say, I was talking to Chris Ward, your boss, the other day, and he is just tickled to death about all you parks people. And he's like really happy with how things are going over there. And it's cool that you got this millage so you can do cool stuff. And it's just like a nice little warm feeling.
Oh, I appreciate that, and thank you all of you for your continued support. We are thrilled and very frantically working behind the scenes to come up with a lot of good plans and park development and acquisition, all the things that you mentioned. We're really excited, and you're gonna hear a lot from us in the coming months.
Great. And then the other one?
Yep, so the other one is, this is ARPA money coming down through the DNR to Ducks Unlimited for wetland conservation. So this is an application for an award for $425,000 to purchase 4 parcels and possibly a conservation easement on the north side of Pontiac Oaks. So these are properties off Walton Boulevard on the north side of Krieger Lake. So if you're standing in Pontiac Oaks looking out at the water, they're the parcels on the other side. So this would give us the ability to manage the whole lake shore essentially contiguously, which will make it much easier for us to do. And then we're hoping to be able to put a trail around the lake and kind of loop up and come back down. So
These are good.
I think we just got the
Maybe Angela would
authorization
like this one.
to negotiate the acquisition, and Edie and I, or if not this morning, then Paul's coming to the next meeting to do that. So this is just the acceptance of the grant, and then we'll move forward with trying to acquire those properties.
Good
Thank
things.
Yeah, we'll go on a hike, Angela.
Yep, yep, with you.
All right.
We will gladly take you.
All right, so is there any other discussion on these 2 items? As such, let's go ahead and prompt the vote on items 11A and B.
Okay, this is says A, one of them, right? No, it says A and B on there, okay. It's not, maybe it's not written up. I see, yeah. So A and B.
Thank you very much.
Motion's
Thank
carried.
you.
Thank
Now
you.
you can get back to that wonderful park system there. Just in case we're
Alright.
long on this, few items.
Moving right along, we're back to item number 10, Public Health and Safety
Maybe
Committee
Dave.
recommendations.
Maybe Dave's working
10A,
miracles.
grant acceptance from the Michigan Department of Corrections for fiscal year 2025 Community Corrections Program. Moved by Commissioner Hoffman, supported by
I
Commissioner
got a good
Powell.
point about that. You'll hear it.
Eric, let me hear your point.
Oh, there's Eric up on the screen. Hi, Eric.
Hello, everyone. All right, so this is the you could almost call it the annual grant acceptance from the Michigan Department of Corrections to Pretrial and Justice Services Division, formerly Community Corrections. We did apply, excuse me, in the spring for a little over $2.2 million, and we were awarded $2.17 million, so a reduction of $25,000. This again helps us do all the services and all the things that we do over here at Pretrial and Justice Services, including supporting 15 full-time employees, a part-time employee, 2 partial funded positions, as well as 2 full-time inmate casework specialists over at the jail that do all the great and wonderful things that we do here at Pretrial and Justice Services. So this is the acceptance. Obviously, this process has gone through, the grant review process in accordance with the Board of Commissioners procedures, as well as everything with the Executive's Office.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Commissioner Cavell?
Eric, hey, just like yesterday, you mentioned there's a reduction in your budget by like $25,000. How will that impact you, or will you have to do something with staff? What's going on?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And essentially, well, for the past 2 years, this grant has supported 40% of salaries and fringes of one employee over at the Sheriff Department to assist with the medically assisted treatment services and program. The Sheriff Department this summer agreed to fund that position through alternative means besides this grant. And so when I spoke with my grant manager at the state, since this had already been accepted in this structure, they agreed to have it go through as is, and I will do a budget adjustment request because that funding with the Sheriff Department that we provided was roughly $44,000. So we can cut the $25,000 there, and then that extra remaining funding will actually be applied to other programs and services that we do. So it coincidentally worked out quite well for us to make this adjustment. As well, in working in accordance with my grant manager about the overall reason for our $25,000 cut, there's some confidence that we'll be able to get that money back in the 2026 application.
Oh, awesome. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Let's prompt the vote. Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Next up, grant item 10B, grant acceptance from the Oakland Schools for the FY 2025 home visitation program. Moved by Commissioner Powell, supported by Commissioner Weipert. Can we have Shane on the screen up there?
Hi, everyone. Appreciate you hearing us today. Just very briefly, this is an acceptance of $350,000 through the state of Michigan for the home visiting partnership program. And this will create one new full-time public health nurse 3, one part-time public health nurse 3, and one part-time auxiliary health worker to help with the administrative duties of the increased workload. These nurses and staff will assist Hazel Park, Madison Heights, Oak Park, and Southfield area. And this is in coordination with the Nurse Family Partnership Program as well. So we have some of the staff right now in Pontiac doing good work there. And this is some additional staff to continue to increase the capacity in the southeast area of Michigan. And this funding is going to be coming through, Oakland Schools. And they've been a good partner before. And that's it. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. And I'm here if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Powell?
So I just wanted to make a comment to my colleagues. I know I look real like a kid, but 19 years ago, I was in this program. It's a wonderful program. I was with a nurse for about I think the program is 2 to 5 years, but for the most part, this program helped me tremendously as a first-time mother to learn about being a new mother to a new infant and stuff. So I just want to encourage you all to continue supporting this program because it does work. I was a product of it. My daughter's doing great, and I ended up being a great mother. So, so I just wanted to share that with you all because I was a product of it. And thank you, Shane, for bringing this to us.
Okay, anybody else? Mr. Cavell.
Just to 1-2 it with Angie, she's a great mom and this program's awesome. And Oakland County, if we look at the Schedule A, is contributing $0 of its general fund. And just to remind us, our budget is our value statement. That it's awesome that this state-funded program is there, but that, you know, when we think about budgets. Thank you, Shannon.
Okay. No other comments, let's prompt the vote.
Angie, I should have gone first because you're uplifting.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry. Like she's a good mom.
No, that's good, you just letting them know, don't forget, they can always still be supported. Checkmate.
Good call.
Motion carries, thanks very much. Wouldn't expect
fight for
anything else,
Susan.
Commissioner Cavell. Okay. All right, next up, we have item 10C, what we've all been waiting for. Establishment of standard law enforcement services agreement rates and law enforcement services agreement overtime rates, January 21st, 2025 through December 31st, 2027. Commissioner Cavell.
Can I ask we do C and D together? Because they are the same rates, it's just overtime or law enforcement service contracts.
The first one is for regular and the other is for non-contracted entities.
Okay, yesterday I think
It's
we,
different periods too, it looks like.
is it? Okay, forgive me. Alright,
Okay.
Oh, they are for different
Yeah,
periods?
they are different periods.
that might be a typo, but.
Yeah, I
okay.
thought they were the
That's-
same periods.
Who's making the
2025.
motion?
Alright, I'll support C.
Okay. I need a second, Commissioner Powell. Okay. All right, who's making the pitch here?
Chairman?
Looks like no pitch is necessary. Charlie's ready to go. We can just
There we go.
Just take the vote.
Yeah, there we go, fine. Alright, you said it.
Having a presentation,
For
maybe.
the chairman to be.
After 2 months, I'm gonna
He's
get a
got his stuff here,
presentation.
right?
Longer than 2 months, maybe I'll get some
Problem is,
answers.
We're missing a supervisor, so we suspect he's with Dave.
No, I had to leave,
Oh, we did he?
Oh,
but we're done with Dave, so I don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you don't have to go to work because you're elect, you're just hanging.
This
Gosh,
is
would that
work.
be great?
This is work.
I have nothing else to do.
Is Dave here for this?
Okay, so we have before us Brian
He's just
Leffler.
here, like he just put his phone down.
He said he coming, so
Okay.
That's his phone.
Well, their budget, so let's hear what they
Okay,
say.
you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves and let's get started.
So one of my answers.
Brian Leffler, CFO for the county.
Cheryl Johnson, Deputy CFO for the county. Yesterday, when I presented this to PHNS, I kind of gave just a little overview, because a lot of the people at PHS didn't really know where I came from in terms of my history. So I just want to put that out there for you guys. Back in 1989, one of the very first things that I did was work on Act 312 costing for, it happened to be for the city of Pontiac. And so I've been doing costing of rates in local government entities since that time. So it's well over 30 years. So these are things that I'm very familiar with. I'm familiar with looking through contracts, understanding and costing out the costs. The sheriff's office has a structure that they use to develop the rates, a lot of methodologies, and you see that in your packet when you see the assumptions packet and the rate that was determined by each of the individual ranks. And so that was what I started with. There was a few things that I did review. Some of them were the deputy costs, the actual salary costs for the deputies. The things that added, the big jump that everyone can see to the rates is the indirect cost that we started adding to the rates. Those come directly from Maximus. It's a federally certified organization that puts our indirect costs together for us. They do it for a lot of local communities in Michigan and probably outside of Michigan as well. I'm not that familiar. The indirect costs have ranged anywhere from 7 to 10% over the last 3 to 4 years. So the rate that we used was 8.45 this year. That was the rate that we received in early October, late September from the Maximus study for the indirect costs associated with the sheriff's department. Little reminder, the indirect costs are corp counsel, finance, the treasurer's office, all of those things, the mail room, the things that the county uses to operate and support the departments that don't get charged directly specifically to the departments on a normal basis, so they do this indirect cost. It's kind of the cost of doing business, and that's what we added to the contracts. That was probably the biggest jump, the biggest reason for the jump. There were other areas that increased, obviously the liability insurance. And there were some changes to some of the way the cars were costed out. They were cars, now they're Tahoes, so there's additional cost for that. Some communities were getting vehicles for the rate of one shift, but they had them for all 3 shifts, so there were some things that the sheriff's office tweaked in those areas as well. The end result is the rates that we put together, we put them together by rank. And then what'll happen is the communities have certain numbers of rank, like I know Pontiac has a major and a couple deputies, so however, it's kind of, would you call it a la carte
menu in terms
So,
of what
yep.
they would want to engage.
So if you pick 10 deputies, then you pay for 10 deputies, and that becomes your base cost for the contract for that year. If you decide that you want more deputies or less deputies, that's when an amendment comes before the board, the different committees, and then the board to approve amendment to those contracts. And I'm open to answer any questions about any of the methodologies that I used. I think you guys have all the information in your packet.
Couldn't open it.
So that, I would also say though, today, on your packet today, it incorporates, based on yesterday's PHNS, is that there was a motion for CPI plus 6%. So what Cheryl had done this morning is updated the 3 years of rates. So the 2025 rate is essentially what's proposed which is essentially usually kind of like actual information. The rate for 2026 uses the components of CPI. The CPI is what the State Tax Commission publishes in October of every year. And this is the inflation index that local units of government utilized when they're calculating whether or not they have a headly rollback or for their tax bills. And so on October 22nd, which is when we received that, the State Tax Commission, on October 22nd, we received the bulletin. It was 3.1% was the inflation index at that time. So what you see on your handout is when it says 9.1, it's the 3.1 plus 6, so that's 9.1. And then for purposes of 2027, just to walk through the next year's, what would those rates be if the rates in 2027 were the increase is the same as for 2026. The second thing I want to mention, is that the methodology that we had proposed was that by using a CPI index that's available in October, so we have October of 2024, that would be incorporated for rates in 2026. So 1 year from now, in October of 2025, we'll get a new CPI index from the State Tax Commission. It's something they have to do every year, is what we would then utilize as that CPI component for 2027. So they're essentially like trying to give 18 months notice to local units of government so that they have the ability to build their budgets depending upon what their fiscal year end is. The third thing I also want to mention is, for purposes of these rates, this is the difference where the county is utilizing a calendar year format. Local units of government sometimes have calendar year formats where their fiscal year end fiscal year begins July 1. So if you have a June 30th fiscal year end, they are essentially having, right now with our rate program, they're under the contract of essentially 2024, which was on average, their increase was about 3%, or their rate was increased 3%. So one half of their fiscal year was at 3% increase. The second half in this case would be 9.1. You average it together, 9 plus 3 is 12, is essentially, based on that fiscal year, it's about a 6% increase over their on their budget cycle, if it was at June 30th. Going forward then, it would essentially be would be 9.1 because then you're over a full fiscal year based on our county's calendar year scenario.
Forget one thing. I did forget one piece of information I handed out at the meeting yesterday, I'll hand it out today. This is a 14-year history of the rates.
2 months ago.
So what you'll see.
I couldn't even open my pen last night.
It's unfortunate you didn't have Mikey's phone number.
Oh, I call him, everybody.
You guys, did you bring your copy?
2 months. I got no answers. I didn't bug Dave Woodward though. I did not bug him.
When you're supposed to call first.
I know, I did not. I called our staff.
Look, I was paying attention
Look at
yesterday.
you, you got notes on yours and everything, here's the thing.
Yeah.
I just really wanted to walk around the table.
Yeah, I just didn't.
So let me kind of walk you through this. This is a. Oh, sure.
Thank you.
This is a 14-year history of the contract rates. So what you'll notice is the heavy boxes, that's the contract length, the term. So if you look at 2011, you'll see that was a 1-year contract. 2012 was a 1-year contract. If you look at the next column to the right, where there are percentage increases next to 2012, that is the percentage increase year over year. So that's the difference between 11 and 12. You look 13 to 15, that was a 3-year contract. You'll see each of those increases are from the prior year. So if you look at 16, 1-year contract, those are all zeros. That is because those rates did not change from 2015 to 2016. You'll see the numbers in red for 17, that's because those contract rates went down essentially 2.5% from 2016 to 2017. So I put the boxes so you can see, because there was some conversation on the contract term. So you can see we've done, the last couple contracts have been 3-year terms, but we have also done 1-year terms, we've done 2-year terms. It's a little bit less work if you're doing a 3-year contract, because you do this once every 3 years. And it's also much easier for the CVTs to be able to determine what their budgets are gonna be and what they need to apply for. And as I said, a lot of my history, the bulk of my history is at CVTs, so I'm very familiar with how all of that works. When you look towards the bottom of the grid, you'll see the first, the percentage average contract increase. That is the increase of the average increase of all the rates. It's not a particular contract's increase, like if you have 2 deputies and 1 lieutenant, it might be different than if you had all of these positions. So it's just kind of designed to give you data on what the increases have looked like over the last 14 years. The next column, or I'm sorry, the next row is inflation percent. This is the inflation rate multiplier that's used to calculate the CPI every year. So that is, like, in the first column, you'll see 1.7, and in 2011, inflation rate was 1.7. You'll see in 2016, that's when we all kind of had that, the hiccup in the taxes, the floor fell out for everybody, the inflation rate was 0.3. Then it went to 0.9, and then you'll see in 23 and 24, when the inflation went so high, we had a 7.9% and a 5.1%. The last 2 lines are the wage increases per contract for the deputies and the command staff. So those are, some of those are negotiated agreements. I happen to know that some of these are also Act 312 agreements, so they're not really an agreement, it's an arbitration award, and the county is told, this is what we've decided, this is how much you pay. So you'll see, again, when you're looking in 17 and 18, the inflation rate, those rates went down 2.4% is the contract. The inflation rate was 0.9, which is almost 1%. And then the increases the deputy and the command got in wages was 2%. So this is just, this is a snapshot of data to help you make a decision and give you some history on what has happened in the past 14 years with the contract rates. Sure.
Alright, have y'all been signing up on the boards?
I did.
Because I'm assuming everybody's gonna have to All right, we'll start with Charlie Cavell,
Thanks.
followed by, followed by
Charlie.
Chris Long, followed by
Charlie, you beat
Ajay
me.
Rahman, followed by Bob Hoffman.
Darn, I
So
was
we're gonna
quick
start with
fingers
Mr.
today.
Cavell.
Cool.
Should we grab lunch first? or-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look,
Could you grab me a sandwich?
I do wanna just say that, when we talked about this yesterday in PHS, I think one thing to, so I wanna say like three things. First, I wanna talk about Ferndale. I wanna talk about healthcare and wages real quick. And then I wanna just like highlight the level of subsidy that comes from the healthcare and wages that we've been doing. So really two things, healthcare subsidy and Ferndale. So first, people have been talking about short notice, or I didn't get to see this. I empathize with that, and that sucks, and I agree with that. And also, in Ferndale, last week, we just found out on election day that we didn't pass a Headley override. So we will have to lay
Good.
off, well, thanks for interrupting, because we're gonna lay off 14 police officers in Ferndale
right.
January 1st. That's the cost of government, and that's unfortunate. And I don't like this, and this is a terrible place to be in because it messes up local budgets and confuses people. But also, we cannot keep subsidizing all of these things. This is one of our biggest contracts. It's $112 million-ish a year. We're subsidizing, they said yesterday, indirect costs, $8.4 million last year, $7.5 million the year before. Those are real dollar amounts that then, as you look at this over the course of time, just to shift into that, the subsidy includes, when you look at wage increases for deputies and command officers, the increases in contracts, not even looking at inflation, just we pay our police good because we care about them and want to do good. Their wage costs, not even healthcare, but their wage costs going up, and then our contract not matching that has happened in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2022, 2023, and 2024, where multiple percentages or points of percentages at the very least have been out of sync. So we've been subsidizing even further than the indirect costs. So it's not just 8.4 last year, it's 8.4 plus wages. Last thing to say, healthcare goes up on average 6 to 8% a year, split the difference, 7% a year. And it might go up 10, because that's just how stuff goes sometimes. So this is a terrible situation, it's tough, but like, this is the cost of government. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Long.
So I'm just gonna try to be brief, because this has been since 8:30 for these meetings, but this is very important to me. So I guess my biggest complaint is, and I did not, I don't think I called Commissioner Woodward, it's probably the only one I didn't call. But for months now, I've been trying to get this and I gotta say kudos to staff because they tried to get me at, but for months I've been asking, what is the percentage of the breakdown of these, like what raises are they gonna get? What percent is that? What percent is indirect costs? What percent is, and I have all my emails and no one knew. So when did this sheet just become available? Last night, yesterday for,
Yes.
I've been here 22 years. I have never not got information like this in my
So
life.
information,
Yeah, just
information.
anything. I never got replies. It was like crazy. And I'm not saying, cause the staff
Commissioner
tried.
Long, the reason on your indirect costs, the Maximus report is published and it's given to all of you on an annual basis. So if you call us during the deputies, we actually had the dispatch. On the dispatch, Maximus came here and did a presentation, and at that time, they talked about the indirect costs as a percentage for the sheriffs in this area was 8.58%. What we then did is that, just for clarification, is that was for fiscal year end 2022. You get it then for after the audit is complete, and there you have it. So once the audit was done on March of 2024, Maximus now has audited financial information, and the report for Maximus came to us and was reviewed by Fiscal Services, and so that became available in August of 2024. Granted, now, the sheriff's office in providing us the numbers, initial set of numbers, keep in mind though too, we did get information from the sheriff's office and we're breaking down, as you can probably see from some of the spreadsheets that you saw on your report, there's like 22 line items that Fiscal Services is going through and understanding the methodologies. Little differences of trying to understand what those methodologies are. Give you a factoid in terms of liability. In your budget book that you approved, the budget approved for 2025 for liability was $2.3 million. When we looked at that number for budget, but here's the thing that I have to deal with reality. The reality of for fiscal year end 2024, the amount of liability for just the patrol was not 2.3 million, it was almost 2.6 million. We're off 10% just on that line item alone. So once we get new information, what I'm trying to do is keep this current. I can't go back and recoup costs for the prior years, and that's not what we're asking. What we're trying to do is look at different methodologies and different approach. As relates to the cars, the patrol cars, I didn't know about how the change of the Malibus and the differences on that. So what does that do? Cost of a new Tahoe is much more expensive than a Malibu. The second thing, the cost to insure that car, the cost to outfit, the cost to train an employee to be a GM certified person of that. That has all increased, and therefore it's our due diligence of saying, hey, what does that cost? Because again, fiscal services is going underneath your board policy of making sure that we provide you this information from our perspective. I'm sorry that it took longer, and I can certainly sympathize for those in the local units of government. I spent 38 years working with local units of government. But the one thing is that I also have a duty to the taxpayers of this county to make sure that we're looking at all things. Now, the sheriff's office and fiscal, we did not see eye to eye on some of the things. We really wanted to have a united front up here for you. But the thing is if we're looking at just how do we give to you some context? And this is my biggest thing as new being CFO. I'm not just gonna give you rates and say I'm gonna walk away from it. I asked Cheryl to put together some perspectives that gives you some perspective where we're coming from, and that's what this page came up for. The other thing though too is what we're trying to do is, for my biggest concern is that if you even offer a 3-year contract, the county is at risk because we're at risk is because the deputy's contract expires September 30th of 2026. So if we go, we're assuming these certain wage increases. What happens if it's greater than what we had projected? Where are where are we gonna be able to recoup that cost from that perspective? So again, it is up to the board to make the decision on the policy of what you would like to charge, but for 2025, the rates here, we're very comfortable with 2025 in terms of how those numbers are presented to you. But as it relates for calendar year 2026, 2027, based on what we know today, if there was something with a CPI, I can point to a third-party source, which is the State Tax Commission. Local units of government get that already. It's the amount that's plus CPI that is up to this board. In PHNS, we initially had a different rate of 2%. But the thing is that during that conversation, people were asking, well, what is healthcare gonna schedule to go up? We're looking anywhere from 10% next year. And as you know, the amount that, quite honestly, the county pays for most of that increase. Not the employee, but the county. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that was my issue though, it was just with the lack, and I guess we kind of guessed right, cause it looks like on this sheet now that I have, it's 15.54%, so that's probably the locals, their 900,000 or 950,000 increase for their contracts is probably about accurate, cause I think they took about 15%. I'm guessing from talking to the locals. But I mean, even when I saw deputies, I would say, hey, new deputies in commerce, I'd introduce myself and said, hey, what's your raise gonna be? Cause I can't find out. He says, well, I don't know. I said, is it 3%, 2%? He says, I think 3. I said, thank you. And I said, I just wanna tell you, in case I vote no on this, I support your raises, but there's other things in there. But I mean, I just really had a hard time getting information. And I realize, and I think Charlie will say that the locals did have more of a warning that this was coming because of after the dispatch fiasco, which that did not happen this time. I just personally felt like I couldn't get information. I think they all knew something was coming. We just didn't know what was coming from the dispatch fiasco with the note going out without us knowing, I just never had this happen. And I get it. I think the things are more detailed going forward with our budget and stuff. I'm not saying, I don't wanna point a finger. This is a very detailed sheet and I like it. I just wish I would have had it before so I could have said to Supervisor Gray, hey, here's this. This is what a deputy's gonna cost, and I just didn't have it. I mean, I had Mike Andrews looked for it for me, he tried to answer Phil and I's questions, I mean, I've worked a lot on this, trying to get stuff, and I just got nowhere, I mean, Under Sheriff Childs, he would answer me as soon as he could find out from her, as best that he could answer, but I just never got, like, real hard answers, and I get it, it's moving targets to the piece, I get it, you know, what you're saying, healthcare, the vehicles, I understand that, but I just wish I would have had, this sheet is great, I just wish I could have had it a little sooner. And I get it, now we're at the end of the year, but, I mean, I'll be quiet, I mean, I'm hoping the municipalities, this is a huge hit for the local municipalities, and I know we all feel that. I understand we can't subsidize, services to everyone in the county for different, you know, different things beside the sheriff's only. But, I certainly love that Commerce Township uses Oakland County Sheriffs, I think they're very professional. I don't wanna name names, but I really respect them more than some of my borders when I drive through and what they've done to my kids. And so I really think they're very professional, very professional. I mean, my kids almost got shot playing airsoft gun, you know, because they were with a Muslim friend. So, with a different department, not Oakland County. So, I mean, I have horror stories that happened through, so they're very, I respect the sheriff department, I'm glad we use them where I live. But I just have of the problem with the process that we went through too. And I am concerned, it's a huge hit, and I wish we could have went slower over the years, and I think Ajay, Commissioner Rahman kinda agrees, if we could have faded it in more, and I knew that came up, and it's not something that we could do, I'm told, but I'll be quiet now, let someone else talk, cause we've been here long today, so thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have Commissioner Rahman, followed by Commissioner Hoffman.
I'm gonna keep this sheet.
Thank you. I will try to keep this succinct as well. First off, thank you both. I know we've had extensive conversations over many, many months, you know, to get this information. It's pretty clear, you know, I'm all about communication and transparency, and getting data like this is huge, right? I mean, this is exactly what we're looking for. I understand and appreciate too that a lot of the fine details are sort of, you know, the dust settles after Maximus and some of the finer things come on, so I understand that. My first question is, you know, in terms of this rate, this 15%, there's a lot of different stories going on about when that 15% was communicated into whom. So I guess that would be my first question, right? As we look at this 15.54, I was told that the CVTs were privy to an approximate 15% raise months and months and months ago. I don't know if that's true or not, but I guess I first wanna find out what that situation is before I go further with this question.
So the first thing is, I was gonna say,
Can I start with one thing? One of the things that I did to try and eliminate it getting out of control and out of, when I finished the documents, I uploaded them as confidential so that only the board could see the documents. So they weren't going out through Civic Clerk to the public. I can assure you that my work is confidential, the people who asked me to do the work, we shared those numbers with.
Sure.
But when it came to the point where they got uploaded, I made sure that I uploaded them in a confidential manner. So the only thing that could be seen were the rates, all of the backup that went with those, all of that other stuff was privy to the entire board of commissioners.
Which is fine. I guess my question is
I was gonna
because,
say though, the upload that you did was almost 3 weeks prior to PHNS meeting.
Yesterday.
so 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks from yesterday,
Yes.
Yeah, look at your Civic Clerk.
which is fine, and that's okay, but I guess my question is, so the CVTs were telling me 3 months ago, you know, just to pick a number out of the air, that hey, look, we've been told the increase is coming. We're under the impression that it's about 15%. And that I get straight from my CVT, right? Where they got that number, I don't know. Who told them that number? I don't know if that came from the sheriff's department. I don't know if that came from fiscal. I don't know if it came from our chair. I'm not sure, right? So
It didn't come from me.
So
It didn't come from fiscal.
so
I'm saying I heard 15 too.
so part of my question is, right, we're hearing these two different stories, right? That hey, look, it's a lot of money, and I appreciate, you know, the position our CVTs are in, because it is a lot of money, there's no question. When you're talking upwards of 800, 900, $1 million, that's a lot of money to come up with, right? Did we give them enough notice is I guess my question, right? And it may not have been to the dollar, right? Because I understand we're still sorting that out. But if they knew this was coming, I guess I'm a little bit perplexed on that piece of it too, right? And I see both sides of the coin, because you've gotta do your due diligence to get us here. They knew 15% was coming. What does that translate to? It's slightly different from each CVT. I don't know. So I know Gaya and you know, Undersheriff are here too. Feel free, and I don't know, Chair, if it's okay with you, I would love to have them kind of weigh in too, if it's okay with you. Because some of these questions come back to them as well, and I don't know, you know, who to direct these to.
So I would like to go through this list of
Okay.
requests first,
Okay.
one time through.
And that's fine.
And then we can go from there.
Okay.
But after you, I've got Mr. Hoffman.
Okay, fair enough. So I'll leave that question out there. These numbers we're looking at as far as the rates, you know, for any of these positions, captain and so forth, are those numbers, what does that number include? So let's just use, for instance, proposed 2025 for captain, 243,800. That's 694?
Yeah.
694. Does that number include comp and fringe, or does that include anything else besides that body?
So in the documents that were uploaded, you'll see there's a 12-page document that has every position rank on it.
Right.
This is the detail of what goes into the rate. It starts with their salary. Now, one of the methodologies that I use is I went into our system, I pulled the same tools that we use to put our budget together for personnel. And I took all of our active employees who were assigned to a region. For Deputy 2, I sorted it by Deputy 2, everybody that had a region, however many of them there were, let's say there were 20, I took the average of that rate. And that's how I came up with this rate. The previous rate was made up of the average of the filled positions and the vacant positions, because as you know, we budget for vacancies. However, when we do add deputies, HR costs them out at a 12-month rate. We bring them on board, sometimes at 12, sometimes at 24, and then within 6 months or a year, especially if they came from another CVT or another unit, they get some people get a double bump, so they go from 12 from grade 12 to 24 to 36 or right to 48. So it made sense to me to take the average of the costs that we are using those particular people for in those CVTs to come up with the average cost. It's not a big number, but it's part of the number. So my thought process on that is let's use what we're actually paying physical bodies that are in those positions, as opposed to if we have vacancies and we've got them for the first year. We know we're not gonna bring them on. It's very difficult positions to fill, we all know that. So it's not about whether it should be this or should be that. I took the actual people and took the average for that rank, and that's what I used for that.
So these numbers are representing the person.
Yes.
It's not the extras, it's not the indirect costs, it's not.
Well, no, that's just the first two lines. So then you'll see the next page, the next grouping are the benefits. So there's FICA, there's retirement, there's hospitalization, there's comp match, there's life insurance, oh my gosh. There's life insurance, workers' comp, disability, all of those things. That's a fringe benefit total.
I'm sorry, do you have an extra sheet, cause she can't get in, it's not working on your device, it's in your device.
Oh, we'll probably work on this,
Oh,
we'll work
okay.
at home.
Never mind,
Yeah,
never
we'll
mind.
work at home,
Oh, okay.
yeah. I'll go on this, yeah.
Underneath
Thank you,
that
Dave.
are some of the equipment extras. So you're gonna see transportation, you're gonna see deputy supplies, those I'm assuming are bullets and things like that. There's a uniform cost, equipment cost, radios in the car, computers in the car. All of those things that are required to make a deputy good at his job at a community. We don't just put a body in a community, we give them the tools, we give them the training, we give them the tasers, the bullets, the guns, all of those things. And that's what you'll see under the operating total, and then below that, you'll see the training support, the admin support. As you guys know, you've heard it here on several occasions, the body cameras.
Yeah.
they're an amazing thing, but they come with a lot of work, they come with a lot of footage, they come with a lot of review. Things have to be redacted, the sheriff has to go through them, the sheriff's office has to go through them and redact information before it can go to anyone else, the prosecutor's office or anything like that. So there are some technical expertise costs that go in that as well, because we do supply all of these deputies with body cameras, tasers, guns, things like that. You'll see there's a dispatch cost, there's a cost for Clemis, and then admin support, which is a couple of technical people, it's under $100. So that's how the rate gets from, I'm looking at a patrol sergeant, that's how the rate gets from $105,000 to $197,000. So the cost of the body is $105, just out the door, no fringes, no benefits, no FICA, nothing.
No uniform.
No uniform, nothing.
Just
No.
no card.
So these are attached and there is another sheet, a Word document that has all the assumptions. So any assumptions that we made to come up with any of these numbers, you'll see attached as well. So it's pretty, I tried to make it as transparent as I could. In my accounting brain, it made sense to me. I don't know if it's as transparent to someone who doesn't have an accounting background as it is to me, but you know I'm always available to answer questions.
No, and I do appreciate it. I think all the data is great, you know, part of my concern and issue, right, is because we sort of, after dispatch went down back in the spring, we said, hey, look, we're gonna try to give you a number. And it may not be exact, but we're gonna give you I think at the time we'd said a 6-month runway. How do we avoid this, whether we end up with a 1-year contract, a 3-year contract, or somewhere in between? How do we avoid this in the future, right? Because again, with all your due diligence, it's so appreciated. But if we spring, you know, an increase to them at the 11th hour next year or the following year, how do we break the cycle?
Some of the things, that's why we were proposing CPI and a percentage. Because then it allows, I know when I was the finance director of a CBT, I appreciated that I had a contract and at budget time, I would look at my contract and say, oh, it's the 3-year contract, this is how much the increase is gonna be. So we need to supply that information as well as we can. There are things that happened, the dispatch contract created an addition to the process. So instead of the rates being done and sent to the CVTs and then brought to the board with the contracts, the new step was added to bring the rates to the board first, and this is where we are now. I think it sounds excusey, so I apologize for that, but your original CFO left, your budget person left, and I've been working on these rates as well as UAW. UAW is all the finance and the HR people. So I'm the one that has to work on the UAW contracts because everyone that works for me is a union person. So there have been priorities that made this not as high a priority on my desk, and I take full responsibility for that.
So, Commissioner Rahman, are you done?
I was just gonna ask one more quick one here, and I can probably go on in many rabbit holes. In terms of the graduated increase, the graduated increase we had talked about at one point in time. I don't know if that's still on the table, if that's, you know, at least to soften the blow this time for this cycle, knowing that, hey, for next year, we can do better in terms of a runway for the CBTs.
I think already there's a runway dependent upon your fiscal year already. So the local unit of government from July 1 to December 31st is using a 3% increase from their existing contract. So if you, in this case, if you're going to 15% for, on average, if they pick one of everybody, depends upon, again, this is just an average, but it depends upon what they select on their menu of what kind of officer they wanna have. Say it was 15%, so from January 1 of 2025 through June 30th, it's 15%. So in this case, 15 plus 3 is 18, so they have there's a natural runway already in their first fiscal year.
Thank you.
The question is then what's gonna happen for the percentage increase the next year and that type of thing. But keep in mind too is they're also going to be, the local units of government are also going to be getting their new 2025 taxable value here. Granted, some of it's gonna be increasing at 3.1%, which is the cap under the, Proposal A, but also these local units of government are gonna possibly save more than 3.1 from new property development, the sale of property, essentially uncapping. So that's something that's why I don't know what's happening in each local unit of government in terms of the easing. The other thing though too, this isn't like a pension fund where you wanna talk about 5-year smoothing of gains and losses, is because it's a closed system. What we have here is if you come up with a plan of kind of smoothing this increase, unless the contract, and again, this me having a fiduciary duty to the taxpayers, unless there's a way to commitment to make sure that the local unit, if we smooth out an increase and they terminate their contract for these services, how do we recoup our smoothing that we gave them the opportunity to ease into it? So there is some difference in terms of how to approach it. I hate to say it, this is kind of like you buy a service and this is what all comes with it. You kind of have to walk out with it. It's not like a payment. I mean, unfortunately, it's not like a payment plan for a television or other type of commodity. Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Commissioner Weipert because he hasn't had an opportunity first, and then I'll go back to Commissioner Cavell.
And not to pile on you, but when this came up with the dispatch contracts, we said this wasn't gonna happen again. And that's what I wanna say. We said we were gonna get there, so.
I think Bob was
I'm
next.
not piling on you guys.
Okay.
We've got to do better. We wish you would have had meetings with the supervisors, and so I'm not piling on. I heard what you said, so that's on us. I mean, that's
I take no responsibility.
right. 'Cause we said
You have
that
city
when
police.
the supervisors came at the
Right.
for the dispatch
We kinda
issue,
thought we'd
we said
involve
it's
them.
not fair to them.
Thank you so
They've gotta be
much.
able to plan their budgets, and
Old-fashioned print.
we didn't do it, so. But that's it.
Thank you,
So,
thank you.
I'm not piling on you guys. That's, we said we weren't gonna let this happen again, and here we are. And I know it's not easy.
I don't think they could do information either.
So I've sort of lost control.
Let's hear from Bob.
Okay, Commissioner Hoffman, followed by
Hear his
Commissioner Cavell.
perspective.
It's no problem. I do sincerely thank you guys because I know this is not a simple task. But what about their concerns about, they were presented with this thing and, you know, the captive audience is like, basically take it or leave it, now they have to come up with a lot of money. And I do appreciate, Brian, about proposal A, they're gonna get an automatic increase in new construction and uncapping and all that, so hopefully that'll help.
Perfect.
But how do we do this in the future then? I think Ajay already alluded to that a little.
I mean, I think the one thing is how you, as Cheryl had mentioned too, is the term of the LES agreement. If you're gonna go for a 3-year agreement, then that does provide them some, we already know that the rate for 2025 is what's in here, but what's proposed. The rate for 2026 used in this case that in the upload document is the 3.1% plus the 6. That 6% was what was thrown out at PHNS. And then for 2027, what the agreement would state is that you'll have that CPI plus whatever that percent is, but the CPI won't be known until October of
Right,
2025. So that then they have, and so that they would then have that budgeting time to do that. Now, going forward, yeah, life lessons are learned. I mean, we're gonna do the same thing here with equalization contracts here, like in the next 2 months, so yeah, but I think that the thing that we're really trying to work on is understanding where the budgeting cycle is for any local unit of government. You know, we propose different options, and so for us, we would be more than happy to we're looking for direction from this body as well, what you want to do, so.
I don't give it this total.
Is there any way to, it's been suggested too, that we do something in the beginning to lighten their load? But the second or third year, whatever, we make it up so they can plan ahead a little
Well,
more, or?
As I mentioned before, is that if you have a 3-year contract and you defer the payment, then how do we make sure that we have a contract with the local unit of government in the event that they decide to terminate the agreement with the county for these services? So we have a 3-year contract.
No, I understand.
Yeah, so the question is,
How do you collect your money?
how do we claw back what's necessary?
Well, you'd have to have that type of contract. So if
Yeah,
you
that's what I'm saying, but
terminate
right-
this,
'cause
you
right
don't
now
extend it, you owe us X amount of dollars.
Cause it's that right now, that's not in the LES agreements. The other question I asked the sheriff's office was, what is the termination period for a contract? It's pretty short. So then next question was, what does that do to our agreement with the deputies that are quote, with the CBT under our bargaining agreement?
Right.
Are we at risk again? So it's a little bit more comprehensive, I mean, in terms of the approach that we were bringing to this is that, if a local unit of government terminates on,
I got it.
July 1, what do we do?
So what you're saying is it's really simple.
I don't like the word complicated.
No.
We're all adults here, let's figure this out.
Commissioner Cavell.
Yeah, and I don't mean to belabor it, but I know the timing is feeling sudden or 35 days notice, but I just want to reiterate, in communities like Ferndale, where we have millages to pay for our own police, we got 35 days plus 8, right? Election day was Tuesday. We got 43 days notice that we have to fire a bunch of police and Parks Commission people and some DPW folks. Cause they're, it's just, it's 14 cops, but it's like 25 people. So this is like how it goes in local government. It's unfortunate, but this is part of the this is the deal. And to what was said by Ajay, they had some rumblings, they somehow knew. So that's almost better than the Ferndale situation, which again, we literally, the Christmas party at Ferndale City Hall is gonna be very bad. Because we got 43 days heads up.
There's one point I would like to add, which I haven't heard, and that is all of the other communities in Oakland County, like the ones I represent. I represent 3 communities. Each of them has their own police department, has a millage to cover it. But we, the residents of those 3 communities, all this time have been subsidizing sheriff's support in the communities that have sheriffs instead of local police. And that's been going on for a long time. So while I know this is painful and and nobody likes to, get told 2 months before you having to pay the bill, that the bill is coming due, but we have to address this. We've talked about this for months, getting ourselves right in the budget, getting our rates right so that everybody knows what's what. And this has been a very painful year to get us there. And I'm sorry that we're raising the rates like this so late in the process, but I understand you had to get to real numbers, which took a lot of time here. And I point to you as well because you guys were part of that process too. It just took the time that it took. So I don't want us to lose sight of the fact we're talking about, I think it's 14 communities out of 62, right? That this is happening to, and the rest of us are dealing with our own police and fire, so police, let's say police. Anyway, that's the only comment I wanted to make, that we represent everybody, not just the communities that have sheriffs. So, Commissioner Powell, you had something.
And I was just gonna be really, it was brought up earlier that, contact has been trying to be made with the mayor, Tim Grimo. I actually work for his administration. And he has been having, I just put on record, he has had conversations with our chairman about this matter. And I don't know where they landed, but the conversation has been had. And I just wanted to let all the commissioners know, and also other electeds or individuals here that serve other communities, that that conversation has taken place. Thank you.
Can I just quickly ask, what is the feedback from Pontiac? I'm curious, if you even know.
So it's very concerning, just to be honest, because we are, from a funding standpoint, we know that Pontiac has the most challenges in this whole entire county when it comes to finances. But reality is reality. So I don't know, again, where they landed, but it is very concerning, just like any other municipality at this point. And they're trying to figure it out, because on top of that, we have another unit that's being requested to be created due to the crime that we have in one of our subdivisions. So it's a lot now that's being tacked on with that. So I don't know where, again, the conversation has landed, but it's very concerning. but it's something that they gotta figure out, cause we see what didn't happen over the years. So it's something that they gotta figure out, but where they're landing to work that situation out, I don't know where it's at. But from my understanding on both sides, I've heard that it's a positive figuring out. I haven't heard any pushback for me to push back. So that's just where we're at right now though. Yeah, but we do have a lot of other concerning stuff going on there.
Okay, I showed Commissioner Hoffman on here. You're
I'm
done,
good.
right? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Woodward,
Yeah.
and then after Commissioner Woodward, I think
Yeah, I'm done.
we've all had our say, right?
Could we hear from Gaya and Undersheriff at all, or are we?
Let's
I mean,
talk to
if they have
Commissioner
it.
Woodward first. Commissioner Woodward has the
So, I mean,
floor.
while we have the fiscal question here, and so I wanna remind people from a policy point of view that, I mean, as a board, we've adopted that the full cost of these services need to be accounted for, and when we charge up for these services, that's what it costs, period. So if there are questions in how these rates are calculated, like now is the time, because we're setting the rate, and we did make, and we landed a flag that before the rate is communicated, we will establish the rate. We're not going to rubber stamp and just do it after the fact. We're gonna look at it, this is right, this isn't right. So when we talk about the uniform costs, like am I reading this right, that the uniform cost that's calculated into, I mean, I'm just looking at the detective of an unmarked vehicle. Is that's a $500 annual cost?
That's clothing allowance.
I do
Per-
love this
that's the allowance of five.
Yeah, that's not uniform, because detectives are they're not in uniform, they're plain clothes, so they get a clothing allowance for the uniform. So that's
Oh,
different.
so if they get 500,
That's, okay,
Plain clothes.
uniform, so uniform costs 700, clothing allowance 500 per the union agreements and
Plain
things like that. Okay, cool. And so an officer's getting a uniform annually?
Well, we're switching, obviously, we're in a transition to new
Yeah,
uniforms,
that
so the
new.
cost increased a bit.
More comfortable.
But it's different because a unmarked or a non-uniform detective would get a partial issue, and then a regular deputy would get a full issue. So there's differences between what items they're actually issued, because obviously everybody gets a dress uniform, not everybody needs road uniforms if they're not on the road.
Agreed, but whatever that
So-
cost
So
is,
each position would have a different.
have a different amount and it's
Based on what
captured.
they're issued,
And
yes.
that's, I mean, that calculates that rate, that the cost of their uniform for that annual expense, clothed, ununiform, not unclothed,
Yeah, please,
uniform or
we'll be on the
undercover,
news.
a non-uniform.
We'll be on the news.
It's specific to that, and I guess it goes through like all the things that go into the cost of a position to do this job
Right.
is captured here. And so
It is
the
detailed
chief
here.
objective that this board has is like, what does that cost? And determining, and the vote that we're taking is, this is what the cost is. Then the question becomes, and how do we stay as close to recovering the full cost of the service? And so this with the CPI plus 6%, does that get us really close to what our cost is?
Based on our best guess now, yes.
Okay.
I do wanna say, chairs, again, it's, as I mentioned earlier, based on contract negotiations, if the cost of a officer is say $200,000, say 50% of it is just say base salary, and there's a different percentage increase in the future, then we could be upside or downside. I just don't know that because that contract's has not been negotiated.
And looking the past to inform the future, it's probably going up. So, but at the end of the day, as a county government, we cannot make money on this. And therefore, these costs are calculated at the best information that we have to determine what it costs.
To break even.
Break even, and I'll be honest, to lose, because the reality is
Oh, you're still
that
not
we
breaking
have to,
even?
you have to forecast, and there's things that may offset. So I guess this is related to my next question, because it was posed to me, that when we look at vehicles, and when vehicles are sold, it would seem to me that would be credited against like the next year. I mean, we take 100 vehicals, we sell 100 vehicles, let's say
We gotta buy 100 new.
we buy 100 new,
At a
but
higher
the
cost,
cost, there's the cost minus whatever we sold those for. Like, that would be charged against those things.
An offset.
An offset. healthcare, we're just living in a world where healthcare costs are just growing exponentially, but since we are self-insured, let's say everyone gets really healthy for 6 months and we use less healthcare, and we stop using Ozempic. That costs, I mean, come down there, that those costs, like, how would that?
It's funny.
Yeah. I'm on Ozempic, can't break these days. How does that get reconciled? Like, if all of a sudden, like, oh my goodness, we thought we were gonna spend this much healthcare, and then all of a sudden we have a $5 million, I'm just like making this up, but.
Well, I think it's very similar to if there's a large increase in the wages, we take that risk.
Right.
If there's a large decrease and all of a sudden everyone in Oakland County is healthy as a bird, then, you know, that's part of the risk that then the communities would be taking. But these are, they'll be reassessed at the end of every contract term, I'm assuming, because we go through this. There's a lot of documentation. I didn't just, you know, the sheriff's office didn't just pluck a number. We're like, okay, this is how much it costs for the patrol services. This is how many patrol officers are in here. So this divided by that times this is how much it costs for one person. So there's a lot of averages. And so it would be made up, I would think, at the end of the contract term when we do this exercise again.
Would we be looking, and I realize a lot of work goes into trying to come up with, I mean, what a year number is, and I like a predictable number going forward. Do we look at would we ever consider looking at an annual basis, say, hey, we are underwater now, or we're slightly underwater, we're expected to be even more underwater next year, we might be a little ahead, but when you add it together, we're still underwater. Like it
could be.
Could we? I mean, can we institutionalize that? Is that something? I guess I'm just trying to. I don't even know what that fully entails, but obviously there's invoices and there's expenditures. I mean,
Yeah, the question is the budget to actual. So this to right now, what's happening here for next year's rate of CPI plus 6%. We're assuming, because we don't have the 2026 budget, you have the 2026 budget, it's based on what was happening in 25, but what is gonna be the true budget to actual on all these line items to quote, true up, either for the county or for a local unit of government? Keep in mind too, the local unit of government can amend their contract, they can add or subtract folks during the term, even during the calendar year. So yes, we could do that true up, but the question is, you know, there's gonna be time and staff. I mean, the question is, I would like a parameter saying, how often would you like that true up to be? Also too, if it goes one way or another, how are these contracts gonna be, those true ups, how the contracts gonna represent that, well, if we owe the local unit of government, cause we quote charge too much, if that's it, then how do we credit back? And the question is, from a local unit of government, what happens if we underestimated what that amount is? Are they willing to sign a contract that they're gonna make us whole? That doesn't have to be an immediate, that could be something more of a pay over time type thing, but it could actually be eased in over their 3-year term of their contract. So we could come up with any ways to slice the true up, so to speak. And again, that can go either way between the county side or for local CBT side.
I wanna say, and I don't mean any disrespect to you guys, but coming from a finance director from a local unit of government, if this is what I thought my 3-year contract was, and then you guys came back halfway through and said, hey, I need another $500,000, when I've already determined my tax rate, and I've already done my budget, and I've already tried to figure out how I'm gonna spend my general fund dollars, we're gonna be in the same situation that we're in now.
Alright, so
I know we're ready.
I'm about ready to call the question.
Yeah. One more statement, if I could.
One sentence.
Please, I wanna be just very, very brief. So I've got all my information here. Today I'm voting no. I'm not gonna say I'm voting no next week. I just wanna study this, I wanna make this clear. I can change my mind by next week, but this is great sheets. This is what I've been asking for. I'm a little old school, so I had them print it for me, because I like print sometimes better just to find every detail. But this is exactly what I wanted, and I did wanna make a statement, I do feel for the local municipalities. I love using the sheriff's department where I live. And we do have a fiduciary responsibility as a county commissioner, I realize that too, to cover our cost. So I'm just doing no now, so I can read everything, but I'm not 100% sure I'm gonna be no next week at the board meeting. I just want to put that out there. I'm gonna read my information, I got better at home, so thank you.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, I just wanna, I'm both roles, you're responsible for your local government, but we're responsible to Oakland County taxpayers too, so, thank you.
Commissioner Whiteford?
I'm,
That's it.
I'm along the same lines that I've given detail to the two supervisors that are here and hopefully share with the other supervisors.
And I just want you guys
And
to
can I ask
know.
one little thing on your, down in your cover sheet on your assumptions? Down, there's a little note here on indirect costs, 6579.
I wanted these.
Cheryl's update, Cheryl? Yeah. I see a little note, per sheriff budget did not include employee incentives amount of $326,800, which was considered an adjustment prior year, so you're basically, you're letting that watch.
It was a conversation that was had between the sheriff's office and myself.
But, yeah,
And so it was decided that that's not included. What that piece was the separation incentives for people that retired under the VSIP. So when you're looking at Maximus, they look at a couple of years ago, those actuals determine what the cost is for the following year, and then they do that true up.
but you're letting that walk, it looks like you're letting 300,000 wash on this.
If you agree to these rates, you're letting that walk.
I'm presenting
When I think that,
Where are you at?
there's an agree, I mean,
that's
their recommendation.
One more time.
Yep, so I'll be really brief, just two quick comments. One is, I think we also have to keep in perspective that all of these CVTs have the ability to start their own police department if they want it. But at the end of the day, for them to continue with a service that's already in existence, it's doing a great job and is gonna cost them far less overall, I think that's something else that we need to keep in mind and remind them that that's certainly their prerogative. And then to Brian quickly, in terms of a clawback in the contract, if we were to create a graduated system, and I appreciate your comments and understand, obviously if we give them the smooth curve and then they terminate, what happens? I mean, can we at this point, knowing that, we kind of took our time to do our due diligence, created some delays, put us all collectively in a bad position, could we create an amendment such that the contract that goes out to them says, hey, look, we will, whatever that ramp up looks like, knowing that if this contract is terminated, there's a penalty, there's a payback, there's something to make sure we're made whole, does that option still exist at this stage?
I think I'm gonna lead to you, but I'm gonna have to work with corporate counsel to make sure that type of language, like for example, we do a true up, they cancel after the first year, you short the first year of 2025, rather than the rates here, you say, oh, let's cut it 10%, so we'll defer that for the next 2 years. They cancel after the first year. I would like to say, well, then how much notice are you gonna give them for cancellation? Because again, there's also administrative things for them to cancel the reassignment of those officers. The second thing is, we then have to say, well, okay, you only get a year, you gotta pay us back within 1 year, not 2 years. Those are decisions that are gonna have to be made by anybody else. It's we can certainly draft anything, but it's really what's the, here again, Commissioner, I think the question is, how much more risk are you gonna allow for you to take, to say, you'll take it, you'll accept these different terms or create these different terms, but this is at the risk of not having dollars in for your budget for 2026 or 2027. I just aware of that. I mean, we really had the budgets you adopted this year, keep in mind, is that there was $19 million of asks that we asked for all the departments for wanting to put in the budget, and all we could fulfill was $4 million of that. That was this year for 2025. Based on where we are today, where we're at that time. What I'm saying though is that if you let somebody defer, then you're gonna exaggerate that problem for the next couple of fiscal years.
Correct.
So I guess maybe what I'm saying, I'm not a big proponent of kicking the can down the road, because you as the county with your AAA bond rating, you don't do that. You pay your vendors on time. You do contracts and negotiates on good faith. These are the things that you are as a
That's why you need to
commission,
apply.
have told third parties, i.e. Standard Poor's and Rating, you provide 3-year balanced budgets. I just strongly encourage you again in my presentation of the S&P credit opinion that talked about why the county is a AAA. You have policies in place. These are your guardrails, and then as soon as you start knocking down these guardrails, what are you doing? You're putting everybody at risk. Your cost of borrowing, your AAA. So I'm a little bit more comprehensive about that.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Thank you.
I think we're ready to call the
Yeah,
question
copy.
on
Yes.
item, let's see, this is 10C. Establishment of the law enforcement services agreements rate and law enforcement services agreement overtime rates for standard law. January 1st, 2025 through December 31st. Is it 2025 or 2027?
27.
2 years.
Because this one says 27, but the next one says 25.
We're doing C, we're doing C and D together, right?
No, we're not.
So the
Oh, we're
26
not.
for 25,
They're two
26
different.
and 27.
I'm just asking
27.
because I don't know, are they
Till 27.
27? Okay,
So it is a 3-year.
so it's,
Because when we brought it, excuse me,
we're just
when
doing
we brought
C.
it yesterday, it was the 25-year, and then we got direction to look at the 3-year. So we worked on that last night and this morning, and so
I
if
just
there's
wanna
a
make sure
typo,
it's
I
not a typo.
apologize.
Yep.
That's all. And Barbara shows up, magically.
It's like she
All
can
right,
hear us.
so that's the item, let's prompt the vote.
This is the beauty of salary.
You're right. We've been here for 7 hours.
I know, 8:30 I've been continual.
Cheese and a piece of melon.
Oh, no.
Oh, and I still have another meeting after this.
Oh, good,
Oh,
you're
do
gonna
you?
make it up for me.
Oh, that's right, we got
Audit
audit.
subcommittee.
Yeah.
I had 3 today too, I mean, I've been 8:30.
Okay.
We've got 6 yeas, 3 nays.
Okay, motion carries. Next item then is item 10D, the establishment of the overtime law enforcement services agreement rates for non-contracted entities, January 21st, 2025 through December 31st, 2025. Moved by Commissioner Smith Charles, who wants to get out of here, and supported by
Right.
Commissioner Cavell. All right,
Another meeting.
We just, there's a question
Commissioner
on it.
Woodward.
So is the idea that we will adopt a new schedule for 26 and then we'll
Yeah.
do 27?
That's short,
Got it.
Anybody else have anything on this particular item? Commissioner Cavell.
I guess this is the same schedule as what we just approved, but for 1 year instead of 3.
Well, it's for non-contracted
on this.
CBT, so it's when we charge, for example, before the sheriff was at the Silverdome, myself, they charged overtime rates to the Silverdome to provide security, deputy services to help with the event. They were not a contracted CBT, so these are the rates that are used by the hour for contracted CBT, for CBTs who do not have a contract. So if Commissioner Markham needed for one of her communities, some deputies, this is the rate.
Suburban is in our
Yes, yes,
community, and we've
exactly.
had several fancy people come through there that needed
you
the sheriff's
have.
support,
Yes,
and so
Okay.
that's what you're talking about.
yes.
Thank you. Understood.
Holly. Dickens
Okay,
Festival.
anything else? Let's prompt the vote.
Holly's Dickens Festival, just kidding. The Holly Dickens Festival. They need some security there. Let's Ebenezer Scrooge. Time for me to go.
We've got 7 yeas, 2 nays.
Okay, motion carries. Next is item 10E, grant amendment number 1 from Michigan Department of Treasury for the 2024 Michigan Commission on Law Enforcement Standards Distribution Program.
Sorry.
Oh, the next one, Hilton.
Moved by Commissioner Powell, supported by Commissioner Hoffman.
Be careful, because I'm usually walking around, but.
Hi.
Good afternoon. So this is just our annual distribution for grant training funds from the Michigan Commission on Law Enforcement Standards. We get 2 distributions per year. This is our second distribution for 2024 in the amount of $123,196.
Anybody have any questions on this one? Let's prompt the vote.
So that comes from
Yeah.
Still smiles.
Well, good thing we brought up those other two items. We're done with 11
Okay,
too.
motion carries.
We're done with
We
11 A and B.
completed item 11 earlier.
A and B, yeah.
A and B, so we are at item 12, which is our second public comment. So anybody who wants to speak to us, I see Commissioner Barnett.
Yeah, I'd like to hear the.
Commissioner, I got upgraded.
Yeah, no, that's a promotion.
Supervisor, I think they
I haven't had any
downgraded being
food
a
since
commissioner.
7:15 this morning, so I'm a little loopy.
Yeah, that's
Thank you all for your service and commitment to our county. Just wanna share a few thoughts and just,
Good.
first of all, I've been studying this issue. Larry Gray, who had to leave, kind of spearheaded for the townships, the dispatch issue. And I just wanna be really clear, this is not the same thing that happened in Ferndale. It's not. Because the residents voted and decided. We're being voluntold. We had a chance to speak with the chair for a little bit. Our next opportunity for new revenue, by the way, there's 12 communities that contract with the sheriff's
Okay,
office
not 14,
of the
12.
62. One of the comments I made to the chair was, based on this understanding of how this works, then really only the 12 communities that are represented by the sheriff's office should vote in the sheriff's election. If you really wanna do what Commissioner Cavell said, you know, not subsidize anyone, then every CBT should be paying something to the sheriff's office, something. They're getting some benefit from it. To speak to Brian's points, about this, you know, half a year, so that we are getting an onboarding. We are not getting an onboarding, folks. And you asked some really great questions. Cause 10 of the 12 contracting communities or townships are on calendar year budgets. We don't get the 6 months at the 3% and then a blended rate at the 15%. No, we get hit with 15% January 1. We didn't plan for it. The difference between us and Ferndale is the residents got a chance to vote and said, we don't want to pay more money for police, or whatever that ballot question was. We are not getting that opportunity. There have been 0 conversations with us about this. We have heard it, rumor and innuendo, and during that dispatch discussion that Larry Gray kind of spearheaded for the townships, and I'm sort of jumping in on behalf of this issue, we were told at that time that it wouldn't be as much in 8%. Now again, Larry just shared that with Mr. Woodward. I wasn't a part of that conversation. I'm interested in the handouts that were referenced. They're not in the packet, which is frustrating, but I'm assuming what you just copied are the handouts that you referenced, that you were referencing. Okay, these should be public to everyone to see, right? You meant, because there's been talk about, we put this out 3 weeks ago, but it's confidential. None of this should be confidential. So this should be able, for us to be able to review, because as I told the chair, now I have to go to my residents to say, we are not only not adding 1.5 new police positions that we have talked about creating a special task force in our community as well, as you mentioned, Ms. Powell, but we have to find out a way to get through the next 2 years, because that's the next time any township can ask for more money. None of us have an election in 2025. We are all gonna have to raise taxes, all 10 townships, in order to pay for this, except for maybe Oakland Township, because they have $100 million in every pocket they look in. We have to raise taxes. And the next chance we can do that is August 2026. That's the next election any township has. None of us have elections next year, unless we wanna have a special election with one ballot question and we will get our heads chopped off. So that's the position you're putting us in. And by the way, that next revenue that we get, take away all that, yes, some of our communities are growing, but we can't count on that. That's not how we operate. So the next chance we'll get to be able to collect that money is February 2027, 2.5 years from now. It's the next chance we can ask for more money for police. And you are just making a decision that we are all cutting our police budgets. At no fault of ours. And I get what you're saying. We did the Maxima study too. But you are subsidizing all those 50 other communities are being subsidized by you all because they have a sheriff, Michael Bouchard. They use the resources of the sheriff's office with the helicopter, SWAT, NET, drone team, water rescue, all the things. It's not just the 12 communities. Those exist for the rest of the county's benefit because the 12 communities are paying for it. And we are all subsidizing the jail. So if we really truly do wanna pay for have it fair and equitable for everyone, then every single community needs to pay lodging for jails. And I will advocate for you on that behalf. If not, you're not doing what you said you're gonna do.
It's not a bad idea.
So, none of this, Mr. Rahman, by the way, none of this has been communicated to us, none of it. I'm here because we heard rumor and innuendo.
So I didn't start the timer on your 3 minutes
I'm
for
probably
public
over,
comment
but I appreciate that
because
because I've canceled
out
my
of
whole day
respect.
too. I know you guys are doing this too. The other thing that hasn't been brought up is, we've learned that the OPEB bonds will be paid off. That hasn't been mentioned. We understand that there's a big liability coming off, I believe in 26 and 27, so that should be referenced. We're frustrated. And I think, I think it's fair to say that, it'd be one thing if we were Ferndale and our residents voted on this and knew this was coming. Our residents have no idea this is coming. Zero clue, no say in it, and will not have a say in it for another 2 years. And we won't get money for another 2.5 years, so we will all be cutting police. So, and yeah, we might have to do that, Mr. Cavell.
No, I said you don't have to do that. Your budget is your value, I'm sorry, alright, you don't have to do that.
You're not debating.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
That's okay. We don't talk
if he's gonna speak
we
to me,
don't
I'll speak
cross-
back.
Talking
We
public
don't, it's
comment.
fine, after the 3 minutes, it's fine, cause he's gonna go too.
I appreciate
Thank you,
your time. Thank you.
Mr. Barnett.
Thank you.
Anybody else wanna speak in public comment? Mr. Fine.
Chuck, five,
File.
PH.
Oh, yeah, here,
I wrote it
newly
down.
elected, newly
You're
elected.
like, you're not gonna forget them.
Chuck File, right.
Perfect, we
okay.
aren't gonna
I'm
forget them.
sure we'll get to know you in the next few months.
Hopefully on better terms. When I look at this, there is a difference, and I think that there with my kids, right? I sit there and one says one thing, another one says the other thing. And, as a parent, you have to pick up both ends of that stick in order to get the real story and make sure you understand what's going on. I feel like somewhat, this is kind of, again, new to this, all this. I feel like I'm walking into a little bit of that scenario, not to insult you or anything else like that, it's just using an example I can relate to. That there is ownership on your guys' side, okay? This was not communicated in a way that was timely, okay? And I think therefore, and I can appreciate the arguments about how do we go through and get the money back. Well, you know what, as a CPA, she very well knows that if you take depreciation, you sell an asset, you get recapture, okay? So there are ways of putting mechanisms in the agreement to allow for that recapturing of whatever that agreement is. You guys sit in a very powerful position where you do have the ability to control the purses that come for the money coming back to the township. So that does that. I understand some things, you can issue bonds or whatever, that can impact the credit rating. I do understand that part of things. But we're not talking about this should be a procedure that goes forward forever. We're talking about, hey, we both maybe should have been a little bit more communicative and understanding and talking to each other. So you know what, yes, okay, we'll make this a one-off, knowing it is a one-off. And not this is a new procedure going forward. I think with some of the things that you were talking about, tying into the CPI and giving the 18 months and all that, that does start to allow to do this. Another really great thing to do would probably be able to give us guidance, issue guidance on a quarterly basis. Here's how it's performing, here's how things are going. And I don't know if you do that or not, but I don't think at least in our township, that might be just our township, that we know that and see that, okay? So I think there's some issues on both sides, and I think that just this one time to sit there and say, hey, let's make it a little bit easier. We all agree that we should pay what needs to be paid. I mean, I'm not even arguing that point. How you did the things, I don't know, why not weighted average instead of average? Because it could be, there could be a lot of different things in some of that stuff. I don't know if you used activity-based costing, which I'm very fluent in. There's different ways of doing things in county. But the bottom line is, we're sitting here right now, okay? We can talk all we want about the past, but right now, we've got an issue. And that issue is, how are we gonna fix this so that the residents, because we all are taxpayers in Independence or in Ferndale, everything. You know, we want to make things safe for our residents. And I think if you can allow just this time some way to help us offset this cost a little bit, defer the cost, you know, whatever, I think that's an extremely important thing that would be beneficial. And it would also show great faith in the townships, and we can come back and tell them that, hey, it was terrible. I know I'm over, I heard people. It was terrible, but you know what? They were all willing to work. And that just sends a much better message across the board for everybody. Regardless if you're a Democrat, Republican, or Independent, it doesn't matter. That's what the citizens want to hear. We're working together.
Thank you, Mr. File. I'm just gonna make one more comment, because I've sat in all these meetings and watched this all transpire. We did not want to go out with rates that we didn't know what they were. We did not wanna have rumors going and all of that until we knew what the numbers were. So based on everything that was happening at the county over the last 4 or 5 months, you know, that's what we ended up with, was what we believe to be the real numbers, which I think is what's important. The communication, there were a lot of things that were transpiring behind the scenes that not everybody has visibility to, and it wasn't always friendly, you know, I mean, that's how things are when you're talking big dollars. So I just wanna express my gratitude toward the Sheriff's Department and all their work, and, you know, it hasn't been easy discussions, and you've been stuck in the middle in a lot of cases, and I appreciate that you're there. And I wanna thank Fiscal for all the work that they've done, cause they wanna keep us, you know, legit. I'll just use that word, you know. But anyway, that's my commentary. I just feel like, we need to make it clear that we're doing the best we can. Commissioner Powell?
One last thing, I was a no vote, but that's only because I know eventually board meeting, I probably will be a yes vote, but I wanna make sure the chairman, I had already talked to him about this. The chairman in one of my cities have, you know, they have an understanding of what's going on, but I know the rates are the rates, so I just want to go on record to say I'm not against the rates. I just wanna make sure my municipalities is good, so thank you. That's all, thank you.
If there are no other comments or business to come before the Finance Committee, I call this meeting adjourned at